And also, this one says that 2025, 14 arrested for malpractice. Adventist SHS Center shut down. And also, Ian Pex appointed new CEO of Tallow Oil. And multiple investors submit proposals for Damai mine takeover. And also, CD projected to reach 12 CDs, 20 pesos on tight forex supply. And Serene Insurance CEO honored with 2 prestigious awards. All right, those are a few of the stories this morning. Let me look at some other portals. On myjoyonline.com, it says that being conflict, man shot, dead while attempting to charge phone at Kalba. And also, on that same score, war is destructive. Your enemies are poverty and bad roads, not yourselves. Wild West MP to factions. And also, Amejope opens 2 sacred sites to tourism traffic. And also, thousands bid silent farewell to Giorgio Armani in Milan. And IMF staff mission Ghana, staff mission expected in Ghana at end of September for 5th program review. And also, Mahama pledges full implementation of election violence probe report. And Mahama hails activities of Bar Stop Boys and supports them with equipment. And also, we still have it in our hands. Otoado optimistic about beating Mali in Accra today. All right, those are a few of the stories on myjoyonline.com. Let's look at citynewsroom.com. Top story: Abosokan traders to eject foreigners in petty trade. And also, government allocates over 30 million Ghana cedis to promote cultural tourism. And a first Sutherland Park comes alive with Inchinchim Band at This is Ghana. And also, 24-hour economy will remove bottlenecks for local businesses to grow, coming from Julius Debra. And also, power supply stable, surplus being exported, coming from Jinapo. And government to complete all abandoned projects in teacher training institutions, coming from a park. Also, unity key to victory, Professor Seidu, after winning Tamale Central NDC primaries. Okay, those are a few of the stories there. And on graphiconline.com, 3 Nigerian nationals noted for stealing from parked vehicles in Kumasi jailed 20 years each in hard labor. And also, NTA multi-choice set for crunch talks as Ghana pushes DSTV price cuts. And also, Kennedy Japan, it says that if your vision starts with the IMF, you've already failed. And also, President Mama relaunches National Sanitation Day and donates essential tools to Bar Stop Boys. And removal of Tokunu, this one says we need constitutional review to provide clearer definition of stated misbehavior, coming from Ansa Asari. And low access to finance and technology hindering local rice production. And Ghana records 27 new Mpox cases. Total rises to 494. Okay, those are a few of the stories on graphiconline.com. Let's look at some international portals as well. On BBC Africa, Ethiopia outfoxes Egypt over the Nile waters with its mighty dam. And also, Boko Haram kills at least 60 in overnight attack on Nigerian village. And also, Sudan paramilitaries accused of crimes against humanity over siege of key city. And aid workers use donkey to reach remote Sudan landslide site where hundreds fared dead. All right, those are a few of the stories. Okay, this one says Sudanese villagers dig with hands to reach landslide victims. Victims according to a group. And also, U.S. tells Kilma Abrego Garcia he faces deportation to Eswatini. All right, those are a few of the stories on BBC Africa. Let's look at CNN Africa as well. It says a new Ebola outbreak in DR Congo suspected of causing 15 deaths. Wow. And Bloomberg Africa, Xi and Putin to take part in BRICS trade summit without Modi. And also, oil gains as constrained output hike by OPEC plus hints at caution. All right, those are a few of the stories this morning. Let me try and see if I can break some of them down. Now, let's look at let's go back to the New Finder newspaper. This one says that FDA calls for tougher border action to curb illicit drug menace. And stories on page 2 of the paper. The Food and Drugs Authority has underscored the urgent need for stronger collaboration among regulatory agencies, security services, and neighboring countries to tackle the growing menace of illicit drug use in Ghana. Now, regulatory pharmacist at the FDA, Radolf Ninote, speaking on the Business Breakfast on Zed, described drug abuse as one of the authority's biggest challenges. He emphasized that the FDA is intensifying both local and demand control measures to address the problem. According to him, collaboration enables agencies to share intelligence and swiftly flag unregistered substances. And Mr. Norty stressed that the fight cannot be limited to Ghana alone, given the porous nature of the borders. And he noted also that the FDA is strengthening checks on importers, monitoring retail distribution, and tightening the supply chain to prevent leakages, warning that enforcement alone is not enough. He explained that nitrous oxide is legally approved by the FDA for use in the food and medical industries, particularly as a food additive. However, Mr. Norty warned that its diversion into the entertainment industry for recreational use is both dangerous and illegal. He indicated that the FDA has intensified its surveillance with officers sometimes stationed in nightclubs to monitor the sale and use of such substances. And he cautioned the public, especially the youth, to be wary of these substances, stressing that their misuse poses serious health and safety risks. All right, so that is that. He's calling for tougher, broader action to curb the illicit drug menace. And I mean, we had a conversation here, and very, very interesting revelations, as well as important calls. Now, another one of the guests that was also on the conversation called on the business sector and to support drug rehabilitation centers. And so let me just read a portion of that story as well. Medical doctor and president of RTC Foundation, Benedicta Joy-Ford, has urged the business community to support rehabilitation centers and young people battling substance abuse disorders, stressing that treatment is often unaffordable for many. Speaking on the Business Breakfast on Zed, Dr. Hayford noted that while some individuals struggling with opioid and tramadol misuse are willing to quit, the high cost of treatment prevents them from accessing help. And she called on business leaders to extend their charitable efforts beyond traditional areas such as pediatric wards, and to consider funding rehabilitation programs as part of their corporate social responsibility. She explained that substance use disorder is not merely a bad habit, but a recognized mental health condition often linked with depression and other psychological challenges. All right, according to her, prevention remains the most effective strategy, as treatment can take months or even years, with many patients experiencing relapse along the way. And she emphasized the need for stronger advocacy to educate the public on the dangers of opioid use. So yeah, that is also in line. And then there's another story in line with opioid use. Let me just read that one as well. It says a youth advocate and founder of the JWA initiative, Josephine Walalia, that she has called for open and honest conversations with young people as part of efforts to tackle the growing misuse of opioids in Ghana. In recent years, the country has been grappling with a surge in opioid abuse among the youth. What began with a widespread misuse of tramadol has now evolved into newer threats such as tapentadol and other synthetic opioids, many of which are either unregulated or illegally circulated in local markets. Now, speaking on a Business Breakfast on Zed, Ms. Adachi emphasized the need for parents, schools, churches, and community leaders to prioritize drug awareness education. She noted that many young people experiment with opioids out of curiosity, peer pressure, or the need to cope with stress, making early guidance critical. And Ms. Adachi stressed that prevention remains the best option, stating that advocacy is very essential. All right, so that is a story there. The fight against the opioid abuse is something that we all need to get into. And so I just want to join these three individuals who were on the show last week to speak on the matter, to call on the appropriate individuals, parents, teachers, churches, schools, business community, everybody at all is involved. And I say that it is not something that you can say, oh, this person is the one experiencing, or I mean going through the drug abuse or the addiction, and so let's leave it for them to solve their issue. Once it affects a person, it affects you. If you're in a community, for instance, and somebody has fallen to these opioid use and they don't have money to buy it, they might go to steal from their family first, and then if they don't get it there, maybe you become the next target in the community. And that is why we must all join in the fight. So in your own little way, advise young people, speak to them, tell them the dangers, read more about it, and also take part in the advocacy. And I think that will help us do well, because like I always say, the future of our country is at stake if the young people are getting involved in stuff like this. So let's all get involved in the fight and see what comes out of that. All right. Okay, let's look at some other stories. Now, the government has launched new anti-money laundering policy to safeguard the economy. Now, the Minister for Finance, Dr. Kesi Olatufosi, has reaffirmed Ghana's commitment to implementing the 2025 to 2029 National Anti-Money Laundering, combating the financing of terrorism and countering the financing of proliferation policy. All right, that's a mouthful of words, right? Pledging adequate financial, technical, and logistical resources to ensure its success. Now, speaking at the launch of the new framework, Dr. Forcing stressed that the policy is designed to shield Ghana's financial system from money laundering, terrorist financing, proliferation financing, and transnational organized crime. And Dr. Forcing emphasized that effective implementation of the regime would not only strengthen national stability but also contribute to safeguarding the global financial architecture. And the minister noted that Ghana has consistently demonstrated its determination to combat illicit financial flows, establishing itself as a regional leader in regulatory reforms and institutional strengthening. And he highlighted that the country's experience has become the reference point in West Africa and the West African sub-region and beyond, particularly in adopting preventive and detection mechanisms that meet international standards. And Dr. Forsen stressed that Ghana's actions are aligned with the Financial Action Task Force framework and the work of the Intergovernmental Action Group Against Money Laundering in West Africa, which continue to support member states in identifying and addressing systemic vulnerabilities. All right, so I think that's a good one. In recent times, I think just last week or so, we saw the report that was released by the Bank of Ghana and Financial Intelligence Unit or Center. I've forgotten the exact the exact name they call that organization, but yeah, they brought out a report on money laundering in the country, and the numbers are quite high, and so it's good that the policy has been put in place. And as always, we know that policies are put in place, but implementation always becomes the problem. So I hope that this one doesn't remain just a policy, but it translates into action, and we are able to see some good things come out of that in the coming days, in the coming years, and I mean in subsequent reports on money laundering in the country. So that is that. Let's look at some other stories this morning. All right, so still on the still in the New Finder newspaper. This one says that Wasi 2025, 14 arrested for malpractice, and Adventist SHS shut down. Now, the West African Examination Council has shut down the Adventist Day Senior High School Examination Center in Kumasi following a major breach of exam regulations during the ongoing West African Senior School Certificate Examination. Now, the closure came after invigilators discovered multiple mobile phones in the possession of candidates, an act deemed a serious violation of WAEC strict anti-malpractice protocols. Now, the affected students have since been relocated to WAEC's regional office in Kumasi, where they are continuing their papers under heightened supervision. John Kapi, WAEC's head of public affairs, confirmed the shutdown at a press briefing, describing the move as necessary to safeguard the integrity of the examination. He added that the council remains resolute in its mission to uphold fairness and transparency across all centers. The Kumasi incident is part of a broader wave of exam-related misconduct sweeping the countries. At least 14 individuals, including students, teachers, and invigilators, have been arrested nationwide in connection with various forms of malpractice. Among the cases, 2 impersonators in Kaswa were sentenced to 6 months in prison each, while a third accomplice received an 8-month term. In Kukren, Tumi, the proprietor of Christian school, and a teacher were arrested for allegedly operating a WhatsApp group used to leak exams question in Ebradunkwa. One Ebenezer Fing was apprehended for impersonation and is currently under investigation. Other centers implicated include Yeji Senior High School, Abbott College, and in Asante Bekwai, and Echima Kanwuma Presbyterian Senior High School. WAEC has vowed to subject all results from compromised centers to rigorous scrutiny before release, reinforcing its commitment to academic integrity. Now, as investigations deepen and arrests mount, the council has sent a clear message: cheating will not be tolerated, and those who attempt to undermine the credibility of Ghana's education system will face the full force of the law. And it's very interesting, but I think that a lot of our young people are unable to do independent work. And for many people, I've heard testimonies from people that growing up, they thought it was okay to copy in an exam. Students, to ask other people to copy and all of that. People thought it was actually normal. Some of them think it was something normal to do until they got to senior high school. For some schools in Ghana, they are very, very strict on this. But it's quite unfortunate that in all of this, there's a proprietor of a school who is actually involved in this. And that is the saddest part. Because I would think that the school authorities should be strong on the students. Should enforce the laws on the students to make sure that the students should be quite strict on them, so that the students don't get involved in copying and in any more practice in the exam hall. But we have a proprietor of a school. And the unfortunate thing is that the name of the school is Christian School. And that is the unfortunate thing at all. In all of this. So this is actually something very sad. In the past, I think just like last week or so, we had the issue about the students in terms of the ones who wrote the BC, the candidates who sat for the BC, and some people had their papers cancelled and all of that simply because of exam malpractice. And then just a week on, we are seeing another thing implicated, the same thing implicated in Wasi. A lot of students being arrested for malpractice, and in this time, not only students, also teachers and even proprietors. And it is very, very unfortunate. Parents, students, families, churches, schools must be firm on some of these things, because these are the same people who later go to occupy certain offices in this country, and then they are corrupt, and then we say, oh, this certain group of people are corrupt, and we hear politicians are corrupt, these people are corrupt. But it starts from here. There are so many of our people, so many of our students who go into exam hall with the mindset that I'm going to depend on another person. People are not doing independent work, and it's very unfortunate that we are raising people like that. And I'm very sad that we have people like teachers who are joining in this particular incidents, who are supporting these students to copy. And I understand some invigilators will take money from them and also give them the opportunity to ask themselves in the exam hall and all of that. What makes it an exam then? Because examination is supposed to test what you learned over the period. And so if the opportunity is given to the student to copy, then it undermines the integrity and also the credibility of the education system as a whole. And I think that is something that we have to really do something about. Maybe in the coming days, we'll have a conversation on this, very dispassionate conversation on this, and let's get to the substance of the matter. Who exactly is to be blamed? Who exactly is supposed to be held on? To be held accountable for all of these things that we are seeing. And it's very, very unfortunate. 14 students, 14 people, individuals really, which includes students, teachers, invigilators, and they've all been arrested. And of course, they'll face the full force of the law. But it affects the students, and I'm very much concerned about the students. It affects their future, because once, I know so many people get involved in stuff like this, their papers are either cancelled and then they don't get back to school. And what happens is that they get to join people on the street. Some take to drug abuse and all of that. And that is why this is something very serious we must look at. And I believe that these are just a few of the people that have been arrested. But there are also some schools that these things are going on. And so this should be a warning to all of them to stay away from exam or practice. Get into the exam. If you're a student listening to me, if get into the exam hall, write your exam and get out. If you fail, you write. You are not the first person to fail an exam. If you're a teacher and you're also helping students to copy in an exam, then you should be very, very careful, because it undermines the integrity of the examination. So I am very sad that we have students that are going to have their papers cancelled and all of that. Some may never write again, others may write, and it also affects their future. And so it's a very sad one, but that is a story there. We'll have a conversation on this one of these days. All right, let's look at some other stories on myjoyonline.com. This I am very, very much interested in this story. Now, the Wild West MP has said something very, very interesting in line with the Gbinyeri conflict that is actually happening. He says that war is destructive. Your enemies are poverty and bad roads, not yourselves. And I like that so much. He says that war is destructive. Your enemies are poverty and bad roads, not yourselves. And so let me read a portion of that story. It says that the Wild West MP, Peter Anchene Tobu, must urge the feuding factions in the Gbinyeri conflict to recognize that their true enemies are not each other, but poverty, bad roads, and underdevelopment. Addressing 48,000 displaced people, mostly women and children, Mr. Tobu, who is the deputy chairman of the Defense and Interior Committee of Parliament, described war as a destructive force that derails peace and development. He stressed that his mission as a neutral mediator was to appeal to both factions, particularly chiefs, to embrace peace for the sake of their communities. And he also cautioned the youth against using social media to fuel the conflict. And Mr. Tobu lamented the devastation of the conflict, noting that farmlands filled with maize and groundnut have been deserted. And he called on all stakeholders to act swiftly to end the conflict. The MP was accompanied by the Dagaba chief of the Savannah region, Na Maxwell Kuba Sagra, and executive members of the Dagaba Youth Association in the region. Yeah, so I think the statement is profound. War is destructive. Your enemies are poverty and bad roads, not yourselves. So, I mean, I hope that this starts quite well with the people, and it's going to get them to think. Because if you look at it well, you realize that poverty is a real enemy. Bad roads, lack of education, all the negative things that you can think of. When you go to some of these communities, they face them, but they end up fighting themselves, and it's quite unfortunate that is happening. But this Gbinyeri conflict is something that we must deal with within the shortest possible time, because it is escalating gradually, and I understand that people are fleeing to other parts of other countries and all of that as a result of this conflict. And so we need to do something about it. Ghana police, government, interior ministry, everybody must get involved in that so that we can bring some solution to that. Let me look at this story on City Newsroom. Abosokan traders to eject foreigners in petty trade. Now, the Abosokan Spare Parts Dealers Association has announced that beginning Monday, September 8th, 2025, it will embark on an exercise to ensure strict compliance with the Ghana Investment Promotion Center Act 2013, Act 865. In a statement signed by its Director of Communications, Techiado, the association said the move specifically targets Section 27(1) of the Act, which prohibits non-citizens from engaging in petty trading, hawking or selling goods in stores and markets. Now, the association noted that despite the law, foreigners continue to operate in trading spaces such as Abosokan, a situation described as undermining the livelihoods of local traders and weakening indigenous entrepreneurship. And The group stressed that it is not against foreign investment in Ghana, acknowledging its importance to national development, but insisted such investment must comply with the country's trade laws. And it also called on relevant state institutions and stakeholders to support the exercise to preserve the integrity of local trade and secure the future of Ghanaian business. I think that is a very interesting one. Now, I think we kind of see a lot of foreigners engage in petty trading across the country, and we haven't really cracked down on them before or in a long time. And so Abosokan taking that step is actually very bold, and I believe that stakeholders must join them to make sure that, because at the end of the day, the Ghanaian people need to also survive. And so once the competition is not among Ghanaian people but also with foreigners, then it makes the business community quite tough for them. And so, but I don't know whether it's Abosokan spare parts dealers that must lead this particular action, because I think it should be government. Yes, and so in as much as they are doing that, I think they need to be very careful so that they don't step on toes and they don't do anything that is wrong. All right, so that is all for our news review segment this morning. Up next is business news with Samuel Entry. Please stay tuned.
Hello and welcome to the business news segment on Business Breakfast on Zed. I am Samuel Ainchi. Coming up shortly in the bulletin, Treasury bills auction records 15% oversubscription on strong investor interest, and also Deloitte partner urges boards management to take lead in preventing bank fraud, and also IMF mission to arrive in Ghana end of September for crucial fifth program review. Now let's settle for the details of these stories. Now, so first story, the government's latest treasury bill auction has recorded its first oversubscription in 4 weeks, reflecting renewed investor confidence. According to the Bank of Ghana, a total of 4.38 billion cedis was tendered across the 91, 182 and 364 day bills. Out of this, 4.36 billion cedis was accepted, exceeding the target of 3.78 billion cedis by more than 15%. Analysts attribute the oversubscription to a relatively modest issuance target and high investor demand, which gave the Treasury room to accept nearly all bids submitted. Meanwhile, yields edged up slightly, with the 91-day bill rising to 10.42%, the 182-day bill at 12.41%, while the 364-day bill eased marginally to 12.97%. The government is now targeting 8.2 billion cedis at its next auction. Away from that, the International Monetary Fund staff mission is expected in Accra at the end of September 2025 to conduct the fifth review of Ghana's economic program. The assessment will serve as the penultimate review before the current arrangement concludes in May 2026, with a final review scheduled for April 2026. The visit comes after Ghana successfully completed the fourth review earlier this year. Analysts have described the fifth review as critical, cautioning that the country may face challenges in maintaining fiscal discipline after the program ends. Development partners have urged the government to establish stronger safeguards to protect economic stability once IMF support is withdrawn. Government officials, however, maintain that key measures are already in place to reassure investors and sustain expenditure controls. If Ghana passes this review, the country is expected to unlock about $360 million in October 2025, bringing total disbursement under the program to approximately 2.3 billion Ghana cedis. The fifth review will analyze Ghana's economic performance up to June 2025, with particular attention to inflation trend, reserve accumulation sustainability, audit of arrears, fiscal revenue performance, and the ability to meet the 1.5% of GDP primary surplus target. Recapitalization challenges facing weaker private and state-owned banks, including NIB. Growing arrears in statutory funds such as NHIL, Get Fund, and the Road Fund. Shortfalls in social spending commitment. The IMF approved a 36-month extended credit facility worth SDR 2.242 billion, about $3 billion for Ghana on May 17, 2023. The program, aimed at restoring macroeconomic stability, provided an initial disbursement of SDR 451.4 million, about $600 million, with subsequent disbursement tied to successful reviews. Key priorities under the program include restoring fiscal sustainability through enhanced domestic revenue mobilization and efficient spending, protecting the vulnerable through expanded social protection, implementing structural reforms in tax policy and public financial management, strengthening the energy and cocoa sectors, and ensuring financial stability to support private sector growth and job creation. Now, in other stories, investment bank Goldman Sachs has warned that gold prices could surge to as high as $5,000 per ounce if political interference undermines the independence of the U.S. Federal Reserve under President Donald Trump's administration. In a research note released on Wednesday, the bank reaffirmed gold as its strongest long-term investment, citing global uncertainties, strong central bank demand, and its appeal as a hedge against risk. Spot gold already hit a record $3,578 this week, boosted by expectations of a Fed rate cut and safe haven buying. Goldman Sachs projects prices will reach $3,700 by the end of 2025 and $4,000 by mid-2026. But analysts say a loss of Fed autonomy could spark inflation, weaken the US dollar, and trigger a massive shift by investors into gold, pushing prices toward $5,000. The bank estimates that if even 1% of funds currently in the US Treasury market were redirected into gold, it could be enough to drive the precious metal close to that level. Now, last story before we go. The financial services industry leader at Deloitte Ghana, Charlotte Forson-Abbey, has stressed that the responsibility for preventing and detecting fraud in banks and other institutions rests primarily with management and boards rather than auditors. Speaking at a Deloitte webinar on banking sector fraud, how we see it and what can be done, Mrs. Forson-Abbey explained that auditors' main role is to form an opinion on financial statement. While fraud may be uncovered in the course of an audit, it is not the auditor's core duty to detect it. Instead, governance structures such as boards and audit committees are expected to ensure that systems and processes exist to minimize fraud risk. She highlighted provisions under international auditing standards which make clear that the prevention and detection of fraud is a governance responsibility. The call comes at a critical time as data from 2024 shows banks and financial institutions dismissed 155 staff for fraudulent practices. The number of employees implicated rose by 33% from 274 in 2023 to 365 in 2024. Mrs. Forson-Abbey also pointed out that other forms of audit, including forensic, performance, and value for money audit, can be deployed when a deeper investigation into fraud is required. These specialized approaches are designed to focus directly on uncovering irregularities and ensuring accountability. The webinar also featured perspectives from the Bank of Ghana's Head of Fraud, Compliance and Reporting Unit, Eric Kabeyo, and the Chartered Institute of Bankers, Ghana's Head of Member Experience and Growth, Patrick Ba Abankwa. And that'll be all for the business news segment on Business Breakfast on Zed. But before we go, let's take a recap of our top stories. Treasury bills auction has recorded 15% oversubscription on strong investor interest, and also Deloitte partner has urged board and management to take lead in preventing bank fraud, and also IMF mission to arrive in Ghana end of September for crucial fifth program review. You can get more business news stories on www.zmultimedia.com. You can also follow us on all the social media platforms, ZFMGH on Instagram, Facebook and X, and Z Multimedia on TikTok and YouTube. I am Samuela Aintree. Thanks for listening.
You're tuned in to Zed 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
Dream home. No interest for 2 years. Are you ready to step into your dream home? With Lakeside Estate's exclusive offer, you can own your own home in just 2 years with no interest repayment. This offers you affordable payments, flexible home purchase plan, quality homes, and lifestyle choice. Choose from a variety of beautiful homes in any of Lakeside Hills clusters. Your future awaits you. Imagine living in a home you love with the freedom to invest in your dreams without the burden of interest. As your CIMG Real Estate Company of the Year for the 4th time, we offer you hassle-free home acquisition. Call us today on 020-477-5040 or 020-141-8622. Don't miss out on this incredible opportunity. Call us now to learn more and schedule a tour for our available homes. T&C Supply. Make your dream a reality. Lakeside Estate. Quality homes for all.
All right, thank you very much. Let's get into our business brief this morning. Mornings like this are why I love radio, because together we can take the headlines, the statistics, the noise, and break it down into something real, something relatable, and something that touches your business, your wallet, and also your household. And so that is why I love morning radios like that. Well, and today there's only one place to start. We're talking about the CD. Yes, the Ghanaian cedi, our currency, the heartbeat of our economy. That is what we're talking about this morning. Now, let me paint a picture for you. Now, a few weeks ago, you woke up to some good news that the cedi was being celebrated across the globe, right? Bloomberg, Reuters, Business Day, all the big international outlets were saying the same thing, that Ghana's cedi was the best performing currency in the whole world. Imagine that. The best. Not in Africa, not in West Africa, the world. Now, for a country that has seen its fair share of currency struggles, the headline felt like a breath of fresh air. Businesses were smiling, investors were encouraged, and households were feeling just a little relief. Now, prices at the pumps had softened. Inflation was cooling down to its lowest in years, and for once people started to say maybe things are turning around. But friends, you know how quickly a story can change. Fast forward just a few weeks and here comes another headline, now this time from Bloomberg again, and it says that the cedi is now the worst performing currency in the entire world for the third quarter of 2025. Yes, you heard me right. The same cedi that was number one globally is now at the very bottom. So what exactly happened? And that is a question I've been asking myself. What exactly happened? How did we go from hero to zero so sharply, from the best to the worst in such a short time? And it's a question that, something that boggles my mind, and that's a puzzle we're going to dig into this morning right here on the Business Breakfast on Zed. Now let's talk numbers for a moment. Now in the third quarter alone, the cedi lost about 13% of its value against the US dollar. Now for context, that makes it the steepest loser anywhere in the world over that period. But here's a twist. If you zoom out and look at the year as a whole, the cedi is still up by more than 20% against the dollar. Yeah. On a year-to-date basis, it remains one of the strongest currencies anywhere. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds quite confusing, doesn't it? How can a currency be the best and the worst at the same time? Which headline should you believe? The one that makes us proud or the one that makes us panic? Well, the truth, as always, lies somewhere in between. And let me bring this home. Now, picture a business leader in Accra. You've just finished your media review. You are feeling confident because the exchange rate has been stable. You've even penciled, in some expansion plan, you've put some things in place to be able to increase your revenues and all of that. Then suddenly the currency dips. The dollar costs more. Your imported raw materials are more expensive. Your suppliers are calling you with revised invoices. And overnight, your numbers don't add up anymore. Or think of the young entrepreneur just starting out, building a tech solution, counting on investor inflows. A shaky cedi can rattle investor confidence. And I'm sure you know that. Now, deals that were almost done suddenly get delayed because foreign investors start asking questions. What is happening in Ghana? Can I trust my returns? And then there's the everyday Ghanaian. Supermarket shelves don't lie. When the cedi weakens, you see it in a bag of rice that you buy, even in cocoa, in kenke, in cooking oil, even in the cost of your electricity bill. And it's not just an economic statistic, it's a price of a living. Now, here's a part that makes the story even more interesting. Now, the fall in quarter 3 wasn't just some mysterious global shock. No, Bloomberg points to one major driver. Businesses in Ghana rushing to stock up on imports. Ahead of Christmas season and all of that. Yes, that is a reality. Our own demand for dollars surged. Companies anticipating higher sales in the festive period move quickly to bring in some more goods, and that sudden pressure on the forex markets push down the cedi. All right. So in a way, this isn't just about government policy or global commodities. It's about the behavior of businesses right here at home. And isn't that fascinating? But let's not forget also, the global picture still matters. Our economy is heavily influenced by gold, cocoa, and oil. When the global prices shift, Ghana feels it. And even though gold has been strong this year, and any little tremor in those markets can actually shake us. And that is a reality. That is a reality. Now, I want to pause here and ask you some questions. And I want you to reflect on them as we move into our roundtable discussion. Now, my very first question is, why did the cedi tumble so sharply in in one quarter, despite the strong gains earlier this year? Why? Is this just a temporary or seasonal dip, or a sign of something deeper? Or how much confidence should we have in the Bank of Ghana's interventions? Those are the questions we have to ask ourselves this morning. And most importantly, for you, the business leader, the professional, the entrepreneur listening right now, what does this mean for your strategy going forward? Because let's be clear, this is not just a story about exchange rates. It's a story about resilience. It's a story about planning, about whether we are prepared for volatility or whether we get caught by surprise every time. And I'm reminded of that famous Warren Buffett line. It says that only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked. In other words, when the shocks come, when the cedi dips, when the tide goes out, we find out who is truly ready and who is not. So where does that leave us? Well, some argue that the Bank of Ghana should step in more aggressively with liquidity. Others say fiscal discipline is the real answer. Now, some also point to exports, cocoa, gold, non-traditional goods as long-term solutions. But friends, these are the questions we'll be unpacking this morning. I don't want to give too much away because in just a few moments, I'll be joined by an economist who has been tracking these movements closely. And together we'll deep into the numbers, the causes, and yes, the way forward. So what I can promise you is this. By the time we are done, you will see the cedi story in a new light. Not just as a statistic, not just as a headline, but as a real force shaping your business, your household, and your future. So please don't touch that dial. Stay with me. This is Business Breakfast on Zed. And when we come back, after the transport today and market trends, we get into the roundtable discussion and we dive deep into the cedi, our cedi, the best and the worst currency in the world. Very interesting one. So please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. Up next is Transport Today with Solomon Tetenate.
This is the pre-boarding announcement for flight 3728.
Ignition sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engines running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
All right, thank you very much for staying with us here on the Business Breakfast on Zed 101.9 FM. Solomon Tetenate is ready to bring us transport today. Solo, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. How are you also?
Yeah, I'm good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you.
I hope everything is okay.
Yeah.
You had a great weekend?
Oh, yes.
All right.
I had enough
Rest,
and all that, so I think it was good.
Good for you. Good
Yeah,
for you.
except that I didn't go out.
Were you expecting to go out?
Oh, but once in a while, at least you need to go out and refresh yourself and all that.
I mean, I don't go out, so I don't know.
Oh,
I don't know that once.
So you're not part of us?
No, I'm not part of it.
Okay.
All right.
I
so
see.
tell us what you have for us this morning.
All right. So I'm here to give you the transport schedules. I mean the flight schedules for today, and that's local flight schedules for Passion Air and then Africa World Airlines. And also we will look at the traffic situation in town. What the traffic looks like in the city of Accra. If you are going out or if you are planning going out, how you know the route to take and also skip some of the traffic in town. I mean, and then I leave you with some stories trending in the aviation sector, and which is very important for us. So I'm starting with the flight schedules for today, and I'm starting with Passion Air. Accra to Kumasi, Passion Air Accra to Kumasi morning schedules are 6:20 a.m., 8:50 a.m. and 11:20 a.m. Sorry, Accra to Kumasi morning schedules for Passion Air 6:20 a.m., 8:50 a.m. and 11:20 a.m. Afternoon schedules 1:50 p.m. and 4:20 p.m. and then evening schedule is 7:20 p.m. So we have 3 flights available in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and then 1 in the evening, and that's Passion Air Accra to Kumasi. It takes 40 minutes to get to your destination. So that's the schedules for Accra to Kumasi Passion Air. Accra to Takrady morning schedule is 6:20 a.m. and then afternoon schedule is 4:20 p.m. Morning schedule 6:20 a.m. and then afternoon schedule 4:20 p.m. and it takes 50 minutes to get to your destination. Accra to Sunyane has only 1 flight available for the day at 9:10 a.m. and it takes 1 hour to get to your destination. Accra to Wa Passion Air also has only 1 flight available for the day at 9:50 a.m. 9:50 a.m. and it takes 1 hour 40 minutes to get to your destination. So if your flight takes off 9:50 in Accra, expect to get to Wa at 11:30 a.m. So that's the schedule for you, Passion Air. And let's look at Accra to Tamale Passion Air. Morning schedule 6 a.m. and then afternoon schedules 12:20 p.m. and 4 p.m. 12:20 p.m. and 4 p.m. and it takes 1 hour 20 minutes to get to your destination. So these are the local flight schedules for Passion Air. Now let's look at Africa World Airlines, how their schedules also looks like today. So Africa World Airlines Accra to Kumasi morning schedules are 6:20 a.m., 8:40 a.m. and 9:40 a.m. 6:20 a.m., 8:40 a.m. and 9:40 a.m. Afternoon schedules are 12 p.m., 2:20 p.m. and 4:40 p.m. 12 p.m., 2:20 p.m. and 4:40 p.m. and then evening schedule is at 7 p.m. So we have 3 flights available in the morning, 3 flights available in the afternoon, and then 1 in the evening. So you should take note of that. And it takes 40 minutes to get to your destination. Accra to Takrady morning schedule 7:20 a.m. and then afternoon schedule 4:30 p.m. Morning schedule 7:20 a.m. and then afternoon schedule 4:30 p.m. and it also takes 40 minutes to get to your destination. Accra to Tamale morning schedules are 6:30 a.m. and 9:30 a.m. and then afternoon schedules are 12:30 p.m. and 3:30 p.m. and that's Accra to Tamale Africa World Airlines. So these are the local flight schedules for today. Now let's look at the traffic situation in town, how the traffic looks like in the city. So currently there's traffic at Amrahia. If you're at Amrahia, all right, so Amrahia coming to Medina, there's traffic on that stretch at the moment. So right from the Junction Mosque to the Goyo Fuel Station, Amrahia, there's traffic on that stretch. If you're heading towards Medina or Dodua KFC, that's the traffic situation over there for you. And also there's traffic at Goyo Fuel Station Ashiye. Ashiye, if you are heading towards Adenta Frafraha, right from the Gulf West Station at Ashiye. There's traffic on that stretch heading towards the Melcom branch at Frafraha. So you should also take note of that if you are using the Adenta Dodua road. So that's the traffic situation over there at the moment. There's also traffic. There's traffic right from the Adenta EP Church to Madina Zongo Junction. So you should take note of that if you are using that route heading towards the Madina Zongo Junction. That's the JJ Rawlings Avenue. You are to experience traffic right from the EP Church at Adenta to Madina Zongo Junction. So you should also take note of that, so that you know how to go about your schedule this morning. There's also traffic on the Atomic Hachu Road, right from Atomic Junction. You are going to experience traffic right from that place to the ITS Computer Training Center. So you should take note of that. On the Hachu Atomic Road, there's massive traffic on that stretch as we speak. So you should take note of that. There's also traffic on the Agbogba Ashoman Road at the moment, right from the Cheesy Pizza Hachu, right from that area to the Elimac Executive Hotel on the Agbogba Ashoman Road. There's traffic on that stretch at the moment. You should take note of that. So that's the traffic situation around that area. There's also traffic right from Legon to Accra Mall. There's massive traffic on that stretch as we speak from Legon to Accra Mall. So if you are using the Legon Road passing Shiashi to Accra Mall, you are going to experience massive traffic on that stretch as we speak. So you should also take note of that. And there's traffic on the Lagos Avenue, right from Tomrick Hotel to Emmanuel Eye Clinic. There's massive traffic on that stretch, and that's Lagos Avenue. So if you are from Maoleshi, want to join Shiashi, or if you are from American House using the Maoleshi Road, you are going to experience traffic on the Lagos Avenue. So you should take note of that. So that's the traffic situation in town. Now let me leave you with some stories trending in the aviation sector. So Camel or aviation to add $75 billion to Africa's GDP, and that's from Camel Alawadi, regional vice president for Africa and the Middle East at the International Air Transport Association. So the president or regional vice president for Africa and the Middle East at the International Air Transport Association has said that aviation is powering Africa's economic future, supporting millions of jobs and driving trade and connectivity across the continent. So delivering remarks at the Aviation Africa Summit in Kigali, Mr. Alawadi underscored aviation's economic and social importance, noting that in 2023, air transport supported 8.1 million jobs and contributed $75 billion to Africa's GDP. He also noted that the sector's resilience has continued in 2025. As of July, African carriers reported a 6.7% year-to-date increase in passenger traffic, showing strong recovery and rising demand for both intra-African and long-haul services. So cargo operations are also on the upswing, with airlines posting a 9.4% year-on-year increase in July, their best performance since August 2024. Growth on the Africa-Asia corridor surged 12.1%, while expanded belly hold capacity climbed to its highest level since 2019. Looking to the future, Africa aviation market is projected to expand at 4.1% annually over the next 2 decades, the third fastest growth rate globally, reaching an estimated 411 million passengers. East Africa is expected to lead this expansion, followed by Central and West Africa, Southern Africa, and Northern Africa. So Alawadi emphasized that aviation's growth will be vital to Africa's broader development goals, but warned that realizing its full potential will require governments to accelerate reforms in air transport liberalization, infrastructure investment, and visa facilitation. So that's coming from the Vice President for Africa and the Middle East at the International Air Transport Association, Mr. Kamil Alawadi. But before I leave, Air Cote d'Ivoire takes delivery of its first Rolls-Royce powered Airbus A330 Neo. So Rolls-Royce on Thursday joined Airbus and Air Cote d'Ivoire on to celebrate the delivery of the airline's first wide-body aircraft, a Rolls-Royce Trent 7000 powered Airbus A330 Neo. So the Airbus 330 Neo delivery flight from Airbus facility in Toulouse arrived in Abidjan at Felix Houphouët-Boigny International Airport on the afternoon of Thursday, 5:30 hours. So Omar Ali Adib, and he's the senior vice president customer for Rolls-Royce, said that the organization or the company is proud to power Air Cote d'Ivoire's first wide aircraft with its Trent 7000 engine. So this is a significant milestone for both the airline and the region as it expands connectivity and support the growth of long-haul travel across West Africa. So these are the stories actually trending this morning in the aviation sector. Thank you so much, Ni, for having me.
All right, thank you very much, Solomon Tetenate, for bringing us transport today. Okay, so thank you for staying with us till this point, right here on your lifestyle, your leisure, and business platform. The show continues. This is Business Breakfast on Zed, but we'll take a quick music break. When we return, we come your way with the market trend segment with our in-house economic analyst, Emmanuel Boateng. Please don't touch that dial. We will be right back. oversubscribed Treasury bill auction. Yeah, for the first time in about 4 or 5 weeks now, raising 4.36 billion Ghana cedis against a target of 3.78 billion Ghana cedis. Now, the 91-day bill once again led the pack, even as yields edged slightly lower. But what exactly is behind this rebound in investor demand? What does this mean for government financing, for banks, and for the wider economy? And that is what we're going to dig in right away. Iman Obating, our in-house economic analyst, joins me over the phone lines. Iman, good morning. Hold on for me, Ima. All right, let me see if I can get him through. Ima, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
All right, great. Now I can hear you. Thank you very much for making time this morning. You're welcome to the Business Breakfast on Zed.
Thank you very much.
All right, so we're seeing some good news, right? On the isn't it good news?
It depends.
It depends on who is at the end there.
Yeah.
All right. Anyway, so I mean, this week's TV auction was oversubscribed after weeks of under subscription, and I'm curious, what exactly explained this rebound in investor demand?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I cannot say there's much of a rebound because the target was nearly 3.7 billion or 3.8 billion. That is not much. If you ask me, it is not much because 3.8 billion is not. It's not too much.
It's not too much.
If you ask me, even what the government has been borrowing in the past, of course, I agree that there had been under subscriptions in the past, but the week before now, the government's target was 6.7 billion.
Okay.
And this is 3.8 billion. It's just a little below 50% of sales. Right. So if you look at it critically, well, in terms of how much the government has been able to mobilize, it is well within the range of what we've seen over the past period, if you ask me.
I think I get it.
Yeah, so in terms of that, how much has come in? It's almost the same as what we saw in the previous week. So it's not, there isn't much to really celebrate, properly so.
Okay.
And when we look at the interest rates, for instance, that is why I think we can make a case, because across all three tenors, apart from 364-day bill, I think that the interest rate has increased. Because in tender 1970, 91-day bill, the weighted average was 10.3265.
Right.
Now it is 10.4220. So you can see that it has increased by a small margin, something small, no confused. And then in the 182-day was 12.4110. It is now 12.4110. It used to be 12.3724, so something small. But for the 364-day bill, that one has reduced to 12.9725. It used to be 12.9985.
Okay.
So you can see that in terms of the interest rate, there are little adjustments. But in terms of volume, very comparable.
Right.
The only reason we are saying it's an oversubscription is because the government target was slashed down.
Okay.
In 1970, the target was 6.7 billion, and then in this week they are targeting 3.8 billion. And so if they are able to raise that 3.8 billion or more, I don't see much to celebrate.
Right. Okay. So essentially, what I get from what you're sharing is that, so in the past few weeks we've been seeing higher targets, right? And this target is quite down, and that is why we are saying that. So if it was still
in fact, the target for the coming one is 8.3 billion.
8.3.
Yes, the next one, 90.
Okay.
The target is 8.3 billion Ghana cedis.
Then that means
when you look closely at it, I'm sure you can easily say that they are going to miss that.
Yeah.
Yes. So that's really how it looks.
Okay.
And that's why it's not like I'm not a celebrator of good things, but when I look into the data, really, there's nothing really to celebrate.
Okay, so essentially, you are saying that it's not really a rebound. It's maybe technically maybe that is what people would have still gotten. I mean, that's exactly what people would have still attended in anyway.
Yes, any writer would say that there has been an oversubscription, because what do you mean by oversubscription? They are comparing how much government raised relative to the target itself for itself.
Yeah.
And that is correct. However, when you want to make a good analysis, then the bigger question you should ask is, what has been the government target in the previous week?
Yeah.
Were they able to meet it? No. How does that target compare to this week? Clearly, the target was far above that. When the target was 6.8 billion, how much the government raised? About 3-point-something billion. How much have they raised now? So when you look at how much they raised then and raised now, given the interest rate, you will see that, okay, in terms of investor participation, it is almost the same. The only thing that we see changing really has to do with the target that the government sets for itself.
Yeah.
I think that is where we see variability. But in terms of how much investors are bringing on board, it is almost the same. So, strictly speaking, investors have not been really motivated properly, so-called. They've not been really incentivized to bring in something really. If we saw a subscription rate that is well above the target, well above previous target, or aligns closely with previous target, then that gives us a certain level of pushing and confidence to make the point that truly there has been an oversubscription, and this oversubscription we think is going to continue going on. But when the next target is about 8-point-something billion, and we see what we raised, then clearly we've not done much.
Okay, all right. So that means that my question about the rebound doesn't hold, isn't it?
So it holds relative to the target, but not in principle. In principle, no, it doesn't. It's like literally we set a target to let's say we are Chelsea, because that team is not too good. No, Manchester United. We said that we can only concede 2 goals against maybe Barcelona, and Barcelona indeed scored us 1, not 2, right? And then we changed our like the number of goals we will concede. So we changed it to 5, right? And we went to face maybe a better team, maybe say Madrid, and Madrid scored us 1. The fact is that we are still winning because we are still conceding. And irrespective of what you see, I want to move the arguments away from merely target and how much we raise to the difference between how much we have been raising over time. Because when we focus on target and how much we are raising to make arguments for oversubscription and undersubscription, like I always say, what if targets are just being set as a way to control the psychology of investors? So that at once, and you think government is really missing its target. But in real sense, that is actually what they need.
Okay.
Because I can over-target and raise a certain amount that is truly reflective of exactly what I need. And in the end, you outside may think I am not doing well. But within I am doing well because I keep on reducing the interest rate.
And that's exactly what I want. I get
you
it.
are spot on. Well, that's how I've been thinking about this whole thing.
Of course, you are an analyst, and so you think a bit deeper about some of these things, right? But how significant is it that government raised 4.36 billion above its targets of 3.7 billion? How significant is that?
Well, I mean, if you ask me, it is significant because 4.36 over 3.8 billion or so is significant. At least we know that their short-term financing needs, they are able to cover that. And meeting your target, exceeding it, it gives them some breathing space to meet their immediate obligations, like interest payments and some statutory transfers. And that is very, very so. That makes it significant. And it's also a way to send some signal to the investors that, look, after a series of under-subscriptions, the market is not dying. The market is doing well. And see, what we are offering the market is still very attractive. Come on board. Come and let's work together. I mean, it helps to rebuild confidence. That's why I tell you, this is in psychology. Any government, any economy, any market that is able to win the minds and hearts of the people, of the investors, let me tell you, they will come.
Okay.
That's why sometimes we want to control the psychological economy. Once you're able to win that battle, it will reflect in the real economy. If people feel safe around you, I don't think they will ever have a problem to be running away from you. They always want to come around you. If people feel safe in government security, they always put their money in there. And you want to control that. That is the reason why once upon a time, our former president told us that money doesn't like noise. Because once you're able to control that, if people are not panicking, if people are not afraid, you see, you note that fear spreads faster than happiness. Fear. That is why gossip trends well. Especially when it's a gossip around a bad thing. It moves very fast. But when it is a good thing, technically it doesn't really move too fast relative to how bad things spread. So once you're able to control the way things are spreading about how bad something is, you anchor confidence in itself, and it drives the sentiments of investors. Once you're able to hold that hope, let me tell you, you've won the battle. You're going to see a lot of investors coming on board. And that is why you hear things currently like, see, Ghana is a safe market. Our economy is working. We need to speak that way, in that positive sense, to let investors feel safe around the Ghanaian market, to bring in some investments in here, to be able to drive the economic growth of the country. And that is really where the key lies. You do not want to create an atmosphere of fear, an atmosphere of panic. Otherwise, you see people exit the market, you see people move out.
I see. Now, we also see that the yields fell slightly across the 91-day, 182-day, and 364-day bills.
Did it fall? I think it rose for 91 and 182 and fell for 364.
Okay, right. Let me. Okay, but why are investors still willing to buy at these lower rates?
Yes, of course, I agree they are lower rates because they are not as high. But let's not forget, I think just 3 days ago we were talking about inflation. Inflation has fallen to 11.5% now, down from 12.1. Good. So looking at the rates, it is still the same narrative. Near zero to negative returns. It's still the same narrative. Yeah, so it is. I understand it this way. Based on what the government is doing and the path they are on, the government is confident that the rate they are giving you really is a true reflection of the fundamentals of the economy, because inflation is coming down.
Right.
It is only the CD and dollar that are still not finding their level. They are still misbehaving. We wake up today, I think now it's almost 12, right?
Yeah.
Official Bank of Ghana rate is like 11.95, 11.96.
Yeah.
But when you go to the bank, it's more than 12.
More than 12, yes.
When you go to the one who actually has the dollars, it's something else altogether.
Right.
You know Abuchi, right? So that is the whole thing. So I think that is the area that they need to do some more work, including what is driving the economic growth. I mean, the GDP. It is not really coming from real areas where people are truly employed, and the rest of that. So on the side of the government or the handlers of the economy, they feel and believe strongly with the data available to them that they are doing some good work to warrant these lower yields on the investment. HBC, inflation elsewhere is about 3%. Inflation elsewhere is about 5%. Interest rates on investments, I agree, is more than that. So these rates are nowhere close to what investors should be earning. But once your interest rates are also down, the real implication is that your cost of servicing those debts, because see, this treasury bill is debt to the government. It is a loan that they are taking that they are going to pay interest on.
Right.
And so we note clearly that the interest rates are actually price that the government has to pay for the loans they are taking from the investors.
Okay.
And so if those prices are high, then it means that the government is incurring a higher cost. And so the goal will be to beat that down. But like we keep saying, when you beat that down, make sure that the other variables that interact with that rate also come down, so that the one investing will have space to be able to feel at home, properly so called.
Yeah.
Because if inflation is way higher than that, then it means that they are better off spending all their money now than bringing it to you. Because over time, when they lock in their funds, they are not getting a return that is able to offset the inflationary pressure they feel or they face. So that is the whole point. So I agree with you that yes, this rate shouldn't be anything that should, as it were, attract investors. And you see, that point has to be made along these lines, that it is not an oversubscription that is worth hearing. No, this is something that aligns with what the government has actually been raising over the past week. It's not any big, properly so called. So, yeah, I believe strongly that more work needs to be done. Inflation must come down further. Because if inflation is 5, 6, 7, and your interest rate is 11, no one really may complain that much.
Right.
And we also need to look at the cost of borrowing, because we all have some money in savings, and we know what you have been earning. It's nothing, really. Oh, you're laughing back. Yeah, it's true. It's nothing really. You cannot do much.
Well.
We need to look at these things very well. They are not the best. They are not offering the investor the best. They are only trying to manage their debt.
Right. Okay. You might also see that 91-day bill dominated the auction. What does that tell us about investor confidence and preference for short-term securities?
True. That is not just for this result. Almost every single one of them. 91 days. It's one thing to look at it from the investor point of view, and I like the question. It tells you that investors here prefer short term. But we know what they do typically, right? They roll it over. So it is 91 day, but they are likely to roll it over. Yeah, because if you roll it over and you look at the compounding interest kind of thing, you realize you earn more than when you keep it. I mean, I understand the whole mechanics around it. There is some bit of mathematics to extend that when you even roll it over for 4 times, the interest rate sort of aligns with what you would have earned when you invest in 364 days. Especially because, you see, whenever you roll it over, it is not at the same interest rate. The interest rate is likely to fall. Yes, that kind of thing. I get that whole narrative, I understand. But investors also know that by rolling it over, there is a certain level of compound interest. We really don't know what the next auction rate is going to be and the rest of them. So that is really what is happening. I understand that. But on another side, the government may also be sort of willing to sell or issue more of the 91-day bill because that is the least cost to them. That also makes some sense. So not only do investors prefer safe haven sort of investment, they want something quick. And you know, we did an analysis over some 3 or 4 months ago where we analyzed the Ghanaian and Nigerian investors, and we realized that they are all risk neutral to risk averse.
Yeah.
They don't really like risk, so you don't see a lot of these investors get into very risky stuff, especially for Ghana, where some people, although they didn't have any hair on their head, had some haircuts because they invested in government security. It increases the rate of aversion. And so that also makes sense. So is the risk appetite of the average investor in Ghana coupled with the fact that they want to roll it over because they think that is a better way to make better interest on their investments, and then government's own appetite to sell at a cheaper cost, and they know the 91 day is their sure bet. Yeah, so I think these are mainly the reasons.
Right. Okay. I think it makes a lot of sense. Now, let's look at the implications for government financing. Now, how does this oversubscription ease the government's short-term financing pressures? Now, I know you talked about the fact that if exactly the 3.78 is what they need, then I mean it means that that's positive. But if they need more than that, but they have to bring it down, like looking at the dynamics, they have to bring it down so that they can exceed it and then push some investor confidence, then that's something that we need to be a bit concerned about. But tell me how this oversubscription eases the government short-term financing pressures in any way.
Well, it gives them more cash than they need or they plan for.
Okay.
Like that should be the right word. And like I said earlier, that helps them to be able to meet their financing obligations because this is financing.
Yeah.
When you go and borrow money, it's because you have need of it. And it's like you go to a bank and you want 1 billion, and the bank says, "Oh, don't worry, we can actually give you 1.2 billion." We're like, "Okay, I also need that." So there's not much pressure on you in terms of what you want to do. It's like there's available cash to support what you want to do.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, it also helps you to be able to allocate funds to some obligations that you have, emergencies, among other things. So, in general terms, you have a platform to be a bit more flexible because the things you need money for would all be catered for, all other things being equal. You have just enough to be able to deal with what you budgeted for and any other thing that may come up.
Okay.
You see, there is actually a bigger picture here too. If this oversubscription is sustained, so for instance, the next target that the government has set for itself is 8.3 billion. Provided they are able to meet that target and exceed it. If that target is also oversubscribed, then what are we likely to say? It will help stabilize domestic financing and reduce uncertainty about fiscal execution. In fact, it will also reduce the argument that we are making this morning, that maybe they are just setting something that they know they may not be able to achieve, and whatever they'll be able to raise is actually what they need. All of those things will go away. Once they sustain it, and consistently, government set this target, they exceed, they set, they exceed. It tells you, oh, investors are confident. It tells you government will have enough money for everything that they want to do. And that helps to be able to ease some burden on them. It gives them enough room to be able to do many things. See, in HIV, when you have a lot of money on your hand that you currently need, we call you a surplus spending unit. You are not constrained. When you don't have enough money that you presently need, that is where you become the best economist on the face of the earth.
Right.
You now, you squeeze yourself. But if you have more than you currently need, that is, you have excess cash, and that is when you tend to keep some in investment and the rest of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that is really what is likely to happen. Yeah, so, I mean, it buys them time to focus on some other things that originally they had not planned for with that excess cash. And oversubscription is what we also look forward to because it gives them that room to do that. But in addition to that, there are some risks that also come with oversubscription. It would also mean that money they are taking is not free lunch. It's money that they have to pay back at a certain interest rate. So that is also debt burden. And questions about how are they going to pay back is also important. And the point I will then make is that it means that when you get the money, spend it around growth-enhancing sectors that can regenerate income so that it will be able to pay down on those debts.
Right. But I also want to know now, we're talking about the next auction, the next auction target, which is over 8.2 billion Ghana cedis. What challenges or opportunities does that create for the Ministry of Finance?
Well, I think the challenge is really an issue of scale. Raising 8.2 billion Ghana cedis in a single auction is ambitious, especially given the amount of money that is being raised over the past period. So it's ambitious, but it will test how resilient investors or how resilient the market is vis-a-vis the level of investor appetite in the market. Because if truly investors are interested in this market, if truly they are confident about the market and its prospects thereof, then you are going to see the government being able to raise that money. If liquidity is strong enough, under-subscription could return, undermining the positive momentum that we just built in a single week. So we need a mixture of factors to be able to understand this. But the opportunity is that if we are able to achieve this, such a large target will give the government some level of financing opportunity. It would show that investor confidence is truly returning and that domestic market can reliably fund the planned expenditure of the government. Therefore, we must manage communication carefully. And you see, communicating for Tibo market is not you going to a radio or a TV station saying that this is what we don't even see that. Their communication is the document that we are analyzing this morning. If you don't manage communication well, and someone like Emmanuel will sit and say, I feel there's something off about this target that they set and all of that. You see, manage that well, because I'm not the only one looking at this document. And I am speaking this way because I'm addressing a broader audience. Different businesses may be listening to me, different interest groups may be listening to me with different levels of interest. But a business that typically invests in this market that has a certain interest may look at it differently altogether. And so you need to manage that communication very well. And you see, this whole thing has to be managed very well because there are other communications that interfere with this. And you need to look at all of them critically. Because, see, businesses make decisions. And they make decisions based on what you put out there for them. They can clearly predict what is likely to happen and will be able to take the steps they need to take. You need to sustain their confidence in the market, and you need to do it well. Manage your communication effectively.
And that is to maintain the confidence, right?
Yes.
I
Set
see.
realistic targets. Meet those targets. Give them the rate, the interest that will incentivize them. Keep them interested.
Okay.
Yeah.
Maybe we can touch on the impact on banks and the economy. Now, since banks are the biggest players in T-bills, what does this trend mean for their liquidity and lending to the private sector? Is that something you'd want to help us on?
Well, if there's oversubscription, that means, I use that loosely anyway. If there's oversubscription, give you the target. It means the bank has money to invest.
Right.
I always say, if you don't have money, how are you going to invest? Anybody that hears about investments wants to invest, but those who would really invest are those who have the money and are willing to invest. So that is what it means. It means they are channeling some funds into government securities. While it's positive for government financing, it also shows the preference of banks for low-risk assets rather than private sector lending. And that is a problem I've had with our banking industry for some time. You see, a bank is set up not to invest in government security. That is not why a bank is set up. We can look that up any day, any time. Why is a bank set up? A bank is set up to make loans.
Right.
A bank is set up to create money. But we've changed the model. The model has moved from, literally, you go to a bank and they'll tell you they don't have any money to lend. But when you look at their balance sheets, they are lending money to the government.
Well, yeah.
So they accept deposits from us, and they are supposed to make loans. We understand that the process of banking is a whole complex thing and the rest of them. But see, it's simple. Their core business is to act as an intermediary. Take our money in terms of deposits from, so it could be individuals or businesses, and then use that money to lend to other individuals and businesses. And they make their profit through the spread. What's the spread? The interest that they are charging on the loan minus the interest they are paying you for, the deposits you have with them. That is the bank spread. But now they are taking our money in terms of deposits and they are investing in the T-bill market. So they have a new spread. So that's what is happening. And I think that it's something a problem I've held, a position I've held for some time. Rather than creating loans, they tend to be exposed more to the government. And probably they should. It's safe around T-bills, but the lesson we learned from bonds some time ago is that the banks also started haircuts and impacted them grossly. We saw banks around that time recording negative equity. Return on equity was negative. I did some analysis and I have the data still. So it's something we need to look into. But it simply means that they have an appetite for risk, low-risk assets and lending to private individuals and to business. Let me understand. It doesn't mean that individuals too are not risky. The other way we look at that is that the non-performing loans of banks, which actually measures the inability of businesses and individuals to repay the loans they have taken from the bank. And that is also a major concern. It has been going up for some time now. So those who have also been borrowing from the banks, please, when you borrow, pay back. Because the money they are giving to you, these are money they're taking from some of us.
From other people, yeah.
No, not other people, some of us. you see that thing.
Right.
So that is the whole thing. I don't know, this country is interesting. You see, this crowding in of liquidity to T-bills typically means that businesses may still find credit tight for or expensive. Unless banks strike a close balance, the private sector may not feel the benefit of improved liquidity in the system.
Right.
They have been crowded out. Once the banks are not lending to private individuals and businesses and lending to government, then they've crowded the individuals out. So money that you would have needed. You see, buying T-bills, banks buying T-bills is actually banks lending money to the government.
Yeah.
If it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, it is a duck. Let's call it that. That is what it is. Rather than lending the money to SMEs, among others. What that means is that when these SMEs go to the bank that they want money to borrow, they are not going to get it. Because where is the money? It has gone to our bank. And so that's really what you've asked me to do. And I've done just that.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Let's talk about well, but I want to also know, just before we try to wrap up, could this strong demand for the government securities crowd out the private sector borrowing? And is it a sign of stability that could benefit businesses? I know you tried to mention something like that, but I want you to be more specific on it.
Yeah, it would. It will crowd them out. And I think I've explained that clearly. Because they are deposits. You see, banks don't print cash in their... they can't. They don't know how to. It's only the central bank that prints money. So any money that a bank has is essentially the monies we have sent, the customers have sent to the bank.
Right.
And it is out of that money that they make loans. Loans that they give to construction, agriculture, etc., etc. And it is out of that same money that they buy T-bills. So if they are using the money for T-bills rather than lending to the private sector, then it means that SMEs, private sector, will not really have enough participation. When they go for those, they are not going to get it. In uncertainty, they have been crowded out.
Yeah. Right.
They are not going to get anything. Yeah, so that is it. So strong demand for T-bills crowds out private sector because banks are allocating more funds to government securities down to them. And this will keep lending to businesses limited and interest rates very high. So you can understand why the interest rates are high. Let me not muddy the waters there. Let me just move on.
Okay.
You see, the stability, however, that you create by successful auctions can also improve macroeconomic confidence. Because once government is also getting money it needs for the things it has to do, you see that it impacts the broader Ghanaian economy. So there's a clear trade-off. So if government borrowing costs fall and inflation continues to decline, lending conditions for the private sector could eventually improve. Herein, cost of borrowing would reduce. The key really is whether the trend leads to a virtuous cycle of lower risk and better credit access than something else that we don't want to talk about. So there is a clear trade-off. There are lots of things around it. It's a very intricate issue. Now we need to really look at. But I think, like I said from the beginning, we are not saying don't lend to government at all because in their budget they've clearly indicated to borrow from you. All I think that we are saying this morning is that it's like a good balance so that you don't crowd out the private sector. Yeah, that's all.
Right. So if this demand continues, could we see the T-bills rates fall further? And what would that mean for savers and investors?
Yes, it will fall further. And it's good for the ministry. It reduces their debt servicing costs, like I said. And then, but you see, for investors and savers, it will disincentivize them. It will make the bills appear very less attractive to them. They are going to turn their attention to other areas they can invest to make more money.
Right.
Diversification will set in. Because once T-bill yields drop, some may shift funds into equity, corporate bonds, or even real estate to chase higher returns. In that sense, falling rates could gradually reflect liquidity into the broader economy. And all those things have to happen. We need a lot of alternative investment handles. I think in Ghana, actually investors have limited options. They truly do have limited options. And sincerely, they even know little about it altogether. Yeah, so, truly that is what is going to happen. You are right. Interest rates falling would mean that savers are going to move away to diversify. And it's when the oversubscription inflation continues, interest rates will really fall.
Right. Okay, but do you think this is temporary, or it's something that will be sustained for some time?
You've done oversubscription for a long time, and you've done one. You've done under subscription for a long time. You've done only one, and you.
So it could be a
even
temporary
me, when
shift,
I think that it is still an under subscription in some sense.
In some sense.
I think you have my answer.
Right. Okay. All right, Ima, thank you very much for your time. Really grateful to you. All right. Please you enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
All right. Thank you. All right. That was Emmanuel Barting, our in-house economic analyst, and we're looking at the Treasury bill market. We're looking at the auction results for tender 1971 actually, and so the government, it appears that there's an oversubscription, but in reality, according to Emmanuel, it is not really oversubscription, because the target was dropped, dropped way lower, because previous months, previous weeks ago, a few weeks ago, we're seeing the targets very high. I think about 6 billion thereabouts, and then the government would undersubscribe. But this time they dropped it way down to like 3.78, and they were able to meet that target and exceed it, and they were able to raise 4.36 billion. So they were able to move above their target slightly. But Ima says that is not something significant, because if you've dropped the rates to be able to meet it, then it means that you are not really doing quite well, and so the government must sit up and do better. Well, but that will be all for market trends this morning right here on the Business Breakfast on Zed. If you miss any part of this interview, please visit our social media platforms. On Facebook, we're at ZFMGH, and also on YouTube at Z Multimedia. Please drop a comment under our live stream, and then I'll read your post for you. Okay, so we continue the show. We get into our roundtable discussion very soon, but we'll take a quick music break, and then when we return, my guest will join me this morning for the all-important conversation. Why exactly is a CD being referred to as a West currency in the world? Just a few months or a few weeks when we saw that we were the best performing currency in the world. What exactly is happening? We need to understand everything that is going on there. And my guest, an economist, will be joining me very soon for that conversation. Please don't go anywhere. Don't touch that dial. Stick and stay. This is your business, your lifestyle, and your leisure platform. Stay tuned. CD. Now it's being named the worst performing currency in the world. Not in Africa, not in West Africa, but the entire world. What exactly is happening? Because a few weeks ago, we're seeing that we're the best performing currency in the world, and everybody was celebrating. Everybody was excited about it. But now we are seeing that looks like we are the worst performing currency, and that's also from the Bloomberg anyway. So I want to ask a question. Want to know what exactly is happening, and I'd love to hear from you as well. Tell me what you think is happening, and then I'll read your comments for you. You can send me a WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019, and then I'll read your comments for you. But if you have any birthday wishes as well, please feel free to send them to me now, and then I read them for you. Let me wish your loved ones a happy birthday for you. Let me do that on your behalf. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH and also on YouTube at Z Multimedia. You can visit those platforms. Feel free to drop a comment, drop a text under our post, and then we'll read your comments for you as well. our roundtable discussion. And today we're tackling a headline that has sparked concern both locally and internationally. Now, the cedi has been named the worst performing currency in the world. And according to Bloomberg, Ghana's cedi lost about 13% of its value against the US dollar in the third quarter of this year, and that making it the steepest quarterly decline among global currencies. And that headline has left many businesses, traders, and households worried about what this means for their pockets and the broader economy. But here's the twist. On year-to-date basis, the cedi has actually been one of the best performing currencies in the world, showing significant gains earlier this year. So what is really happening? Why did we see such a sharp fall in quarter three of this year? And more importantly, what does this mean for businesses, for consumers, and also investor confidence? And joining us this morning to unpack the numbers, the causes, and the possible way forward is Dr. Felix Larry, SCOF. He's an economist, a development economist, and he's executive director also for IDER. And he will help us separate perception from reality and point what lies ahead. Doc, good morning and welcome to the Business Breakfast on Zed.
Good morning for having me this morning, and thank you.
Yeah, it's always a pleasure to have you.
Pleasure is mine as well. And you know, this is my home, so anytime I am called,
thank you so much.
Once I'm available in town, I have to, obey to the call.
We're really, really grateful. Yeah. And of course, I mean, we keep hearing that your insights are very, very deep, and that is why we keep bringing you, and we're so grateful that you always make time to be here.
Thank you.
All right. So let's get into our conversation this morning. I mean, this is something that for a lot of people, it didn't sit well, because at one point, just I think about a week or two ago, or no, not a week, maybe about a few months ago, we were the best performing currency in the world. And then we are hearing that we are the worst performing currency. Is that how the thing changes so fast?
Yes, it is. First of all, I would like to say good morning to your cherished listeners and the viewers on your social media handles. Yes, your question is absolutely yes, because currencies fluctuate depending on the economic outturn of your economy. And so when you chalk some gains, there are some, important economic strategies or policies you need to put in place to ensure that you sustain the growth or the gains that you are making as far as your currency is concerned. And so, yes, it happens like that. Once you get the gains, you need to put measures in place to sustain it. If you don't do that, you will actually retrograde. I mean, and that is why, we are seeing what we are seeing now.
Now, an economist, I saw a headline recently, and he says that strong cedi without strong production is a mirage.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yes, actually, when this thing happened, I have been engaged by one TV station in one of their evening shows, and I think I made that point clear.
Right.
But before I go to that, let me quickly clear the air on one thing. When we started chalking the gains, the actual administration members, I mean the current opposition party, were alluding to them. In fact, they wanted to take glory by saying that it was their policies and programs that this government has inherited, and we are seeing the changes. That wouldn't be bad, but I objected that because we knew where the economy was, and we knew where they took the dollar from and where they ended with it, and the policies and programs that they were putting in place that were not actually inuring to the benefit of the state. And we actually complained. Some of us were sitting on the benches raising red flags and those stuff, and they never listened to us.
Right.
So I objected to that, and I will come back to that. And then at the same time, they were also alluding to the fact that, the gains were, in terms of the currency strength, were due to external factors. Yeah. So you could see some sort of contradictions in their standing. At one point in time, it was their policies. At one point in time, it was external. Then it came to a point that, it is even artificial because there had not been any policy. Again, I disagreed because the policies put together by the Bank of Ghana governor and the finance minister were actually doing the magic. The gold board is itself a policy, that is being implemented by setting up a board to ensure that the resources are well managed in terms of the trading aspect of it. And then if you look at the revenue-based mobilization strategies that were put in place, it's also, a policy kind of agenda.
Yeah.
The government decision to ensure that he will cut waste itself is a policy. And then I also argued on the fact that, look, the decision of the finance minister to improve public financial management was also kind of a good policy. So all these things working together brought us the gains. But at the same time, I raised the red flag that in as much as we're getting the gain, it was premature for us to start jubilating.
Right.
Except the fact that the government would deliberately put together a productive-driven kind of policy agenda to ensure that we sustain the gains that we're getting within the short, medium to the long the longer term. But I think that has not been done. Look, Bloomberg's report is basically structural. They are talking about the structural effects or the structural deformities within our economic structure. Any economy, no economy in this world has been able to strengthen its local currency by depending on imports. You can't.
Right.
Because if you look at Ghana, for instance, our inflation and currency depreciation has been mainly driven by what is called import kind of, factors. Because, for example, when it comes to the importation, you are going to China, you are going to US, you are going to the international market to bring whatever that you want to import, be it rice or what have you, food commodities or non-food commodities. You will need to carry your local currencies and acquire the foreign currencies before you can import the quantity that you want to import. The more people actually demand, or the more importers demand the local the foreign currencies by, in terms of their attempt to import, the more the downward pressure on your local currency. And so that will actually weaken your local currency and make the volatility very high against your currency and your entire economy. So I agree with those economists. I think I am happy that when it comes to, at this time, we are not looking at the political aspect of it, but we are all trying to have some sort of, scientific diagnosis of the whole problem and then profess, possible solutions to government. I think that this particular administration have done well in terms of the CD management. However, there are inefficiencies in their attempt to improve the production sector by turning our economic structure from import-driven to export-driven. I think has been extremely slow. Look, take agriculture. If you look at agriculture, Ghana here, the rice we eat, about 60 to 70% of them are imported. We are even importing maize. We are importing tomatoes from Burkina Faso. We are importing onions. We are importing, offals, yemadie for TZ. We are importing them. How disgraceful it is to a country, like Ghana. We are importing poultry products. Poultry, chicken part and all of that, turkey and all of that. We are importing them. As at last year, I think we spent about $2 billion for rice alone and over 300 million for these poultry products and offals and all of that. These are dollar, that or foreign currencies that you are using your local currency to chase after in order to import these commodities. And they came with very lofty ideas. The name might sound funny, but it is the best. And may he so rest in peace. It is an ideology way back by is it Danlate? Yes, domestication.
Yeah.
You understand? How long does it take for you to breed broilers and then grow them and get them to the maturity stage for consumption? 3 months. Rice production, 3 months. Maize, 3 months. In fact, there are even varieties that have been developed by the CSIR that even have shorter maturity or growth lifespan or something like that.
Right.
And at the same time, they are drought-resistant varieties and all of that. If we are serious as a nation, nobody should come tell me here that they just came into administration by just, barely 8 months.
This is your 9th month.
Yeah, this is their 9th month. And I think, even if we are not yet there, we should see certain actions.
Right.
The government, not to denigrate them totally, have launched so many very important policies and programs. For example, the Feed Ghana I don't see the Greek minister really doing the
Really
magic.
looking.
We need somebody with hot blood to be able to do 10 things around. Because we saw the planting for food and jobs, where we pumped in hundreds of millions of dollars into it, and we saw nothing. Rearing for good for food and jobs, the same thing happened. So Feed Ghana, I was expecting that things like the Nkukwankete, the export-driven, whatever agriculture, we are talking about farm service center and what have you. By now, we should be seeing certain things being done. Look, this year, by the grace of God, we'll be experiencing some bit of bumper harvest. Not because that is not policy driven. It is because, in the northern sector where the farmers have one major, planting season, they do what they have, locally developed or devise their own means by doing what is called dry season agriculture. Right. At that point, they pump in a lot of, fertilizer and all of that into the soil. And because it is a dry season, before the fertilizer could be absorbed by the plant's roots, there should be rain to dissolve the fertilizer chemical, into watery or whatever form before it can be absorbed. Because of lack of rain, most of them remain in the soil.
Okay.
Only few is absorbed by the plant. Right. And so now that this year you could see that, marginally we have experienced good amount of rains. And so because of that, because of the already mineral deposit in the soil, when it rained, actually, it inured to the benefit of their growing production in the current production season. And that is what is going to help us. I wouldn't want to hear anybody saying that government has done any policy or has put any policy in place. So far, the launches that have been done, I have not seen anything. If somebody has seen, you can open your phone line for the person to educate me. That is being done to put those policies and programs that have been launched by the president into actuality or into action for us to see the tangible results. Nothing has been done. 24-hour economy has a very, very beautiful agriculture kind of model in there. You can take the document, beautiful, but I don't see anything happening over there. So if you look at, and production sector is not an isolated kind of thing. It is a change. Because the agriculture side ought to provide, aside the food that we have to consume domestically, also has to provide the raw materials for an industrial takeoff. So if your agriculture is not seeing anything, then your guess is as good as mine. Nothing proper or tangible is going to happen in the industrial sector, where we will talk about value addition and all of that, and even think of export. It is the export that will bring us the forex, the foreign exchange earnings. If we are not doing production and all we are doing is consumption, then I think your guess is as good as mine. So I share the opinion of the economist. I think we are all speaking from the same angle. Like I said last week, I was on air in the night in one of the major TV stations, and I made such a point.
Right. Okay. So it looks like the issues are there. We know the solutions, but nothing is being done. And I agree with you. I personally haven't seen anything out of the Nkukwankete, which was touted very loudly right from the beginning of the administration. We launched a lot of things, even youth programs and all of these things. We are not seeing anything. Yes. And this is not to denigrate also, the government and all of that, but we wish to see certain things happen in the coming days. But okay, let's come back to our conversation on the city. Now, interestingly, when we look at the year-to-date performance, we've been able to grow by I think 22% or so, but for the third quarter, we're seeing a decline, 13.1% or so, and that is why the Bloomberg is saying that we're the worst performing currency in there. Why is there such a sharp contrast between the quarterly fall and the year-to-date gains?
Yes, so you can see that we are approaching the Christmas festivities. So that is why my earlier submission. If the government, had put together some productive sector investment agenda with rigorous implementation process by the sector ministers and their agencies, then we could have, for example, poultry and rice, which are the major commodities that Ghanaians consume in the Christmas festivities. We would have seen some sort of, at the moment, these importers are buying huge sums of dollars to import these commodities. And that is what Bloomberg is talking about. So again, we come back to the structural problem. You understand?
Yeah.
No production, especially in the agriculture sector. I keep saying that I am so passionate about agriculture because Ghana is an agrarian economy. And even from the inception of the subject area called economics, it was agric that was being used. If you read the economic textbooks, 2 vessels of corn and what have you, simple demand and what have you. Go to the textbooks like McConnell and all other stuff are there, in your library. You will see that they were using agriculture commodity as an example, because the world itself is an agrarian economy.
Right.
You understand? So if you don't do that, especially for Ghana, it's a very sad situation. So the declining is as a result of increase in our desire to import a lot of food commodities and non-food commodities, mainly for the Christmas activities. So that is actually what is happening.
What is happening?
So the sharp decline. And if you look at the historical economic antecedent of this country, between the months of August to December is where you see our currency suffering a lot. You can check in the past 10 years. That has been the phenomenon.
Right.
So when I saw this, gains in our local currency, I thought this government, will listen to some of us, and talk about or deal with this means of, sustaining the gains that we're getting in the first 2 quarters, of the year. But it seems they relaxed. They thought it's going to be the same thing. Look, at this stage, if we don't look at the way we can manage our importation by improving production, I think the cycle will be the same. It's going to be, a windfall for us and then a downfall for us and all of that during the end of the year. Because it's importation. Bloomberg has gotten it right. The problem is structural. The problem is basically structural. We are import driven, and that is not good for us. I am looking for this government. And I have had the opportunity to be at a program where President Mahama has appeared. If the man is speaking Greek, you could see that he has beautiful ideas. But he alone cannot implement it. And that is why I'm impressing on him to, as a matter of urgency, think of doing reshuffling. Some of the ministers are sleeping. And if he doesn't take care, all the efforts and the goodwill Ghanaians have given him, they will let him down. You understand?
Yeah.
Look, another aspect, let me drift a bit from agriculture, is tourism. Do you know what tourism can do for us? We have just celebrated Fetu Afeshe, but we are not talking much about Panafest. Fetu Afeshe is at Ogwa, Cape Coast, my own hometown.
Yeah.
And Panafest is something that in the days of President Rawlings to the early part of President Kufuor, the country was gaining a lot from Panafest as far as tourism is concerned. During Easter festivities, go to Kwewu and the Kweapim area there. The beautiful programs that we do, we only go there to eat chicken, imported chicken and rice, and then those other people with all due respect, it's early morning, but let me be a bit funny here. Go with girlfriends and what have you, go and have fun. Newly wedded couples go there and have fun. It's not bad. But what are we doing to, lure in, foreign tourists, to come here so that we can make money? I also talk about, historical, cultural, and traditional religious heritage. You understand? Recently, I was at a Kweapim area, and I went to Okonfanochi's hometown, Ukugwa. I've had the opportunity to travel to India for a business, and I took the pain to visit their religious site. If you go, all their religious sites, you will see Lord Hanuman, and the Hindu people, I think they will be happy with me this morning. Lord Hanuman, Krishna, Lord Shiva, they are areas that they came. If you see Lord Hanuman's footprints and all of that over there, and they have made it beautifully, and they claim it is a holy water. And people pay, thousands of dollars to travel from wherever they are to that places to just attend or pursue what is called a pilgrimage with the hope that they will have some sort of, divine blessings and all of that. Right. We have, when I went to the field recently, though our work was not related to that, but because of my social commentaries and all of that, I took the opportunity to get one traditional priest to educate me. A very old man, close to 95 years, told me that there was a time of Konfanochi, actually planted palm fruit, right. Palm fruit or palm tree, and that same day they harvested it. You understand? And there is a place that they have just only planted the tree. In India, you would have seen they creating some small, water something around it or whatever, and people will go in there and fetch the water and even take it to their country and be doing prayers with it, hoping that go to Israel. We travel and go to Israel. We have all these things. Go to Central Region, Asebu area there's this historical, divine mythology called Asebu and Memphis, whatever. I have been there with the footprint and all of that. This is what I'm talking about, that the tourist minister, who also happens to be somebody who has been in the entertainment and in the media circles, to be creative enough to look, gold body alone cannot do the magic. I've said it over. I think you have interviewed me before. I've told you that, look, it is playing a lot of role in the gains that we experienced. But there are other ancillary sectors of the economy, like tourism, like agriculture, that will help us rake in a lot of foreign. Because the thing is about demand and supply. Right. At this moment, we are demanding more dollars to import food commodities and non-food commodities ahead of the Christmas festivities. You get the point. But if at the same time we have also been able to, improve our tourist sector or tourism sector, and then we are bringing in a lot of international tourists, getting to the latter part of the Christmas getting to the Christmas festivities, we see that there will be some sort of balance, in the demand and the supply of the local currency, coupled with agricultural production to cut down our importation of food commodities and all of that. Not only agriculture, we talk about clothing. You understand? I think government itself should also commend President Kufuor started this thing, okay? Which was a good start, but I think he could have done more. It shouldn't be a norm that if you are go to the University of Ghana, if you are going to do your presentation, these are my bosses and my fathers, and this morning I'm criticizing them. I remember when I was doing my PhD, there was a presentation I was supposed to go and do. I was wearing my African print. I was made to go home to go and wear suit and tie. And that day I felt so bad.
University of Ghana.
Yes, University of Ghana. My own department. And they are listening to me. They know that this is their son speaking. Some of them are listening to me. In fact, they told me that as for this place, you have to dress well. And I was asking myself, what is the meaning, what is the operational definition of dressing well? I have had that. I've had meetings, business meetings, where there are people from the United Arab Emirates in this country. You will see them even in this hot sun. Yeah. They are in their jarabia and the whatever scarf. You go to India, the Indians go to the computer shops over here. The Indian women are still dressed in their traditional way. The men are dressed. Few of them you will see that they are wearing the Western dresses. We have made it a culture that if you don't put suit and tie in this hot weather, you have not dressed executive. I like your outfit. It's traditional. Mine is traditional. The day I finished my PhD is when I doled out all my suit and foreign dresses. You understand? Yeah. Or if you check my wardrobe, everything is African wear. The only Western wear that I wear is maybe some t-shirt and some sneakers and whatever moving around my area. Otherwise, if I'm going for important functions and programs, I put on African print. We need to do that because we import clothing into the country. It's dollar. But if we're able to domesticate and even this Western dress, we have good tailors and fashion designers who can do equally same. So we need to look at all these things. So the issue is importation. And I couldn't, disagree with Bloomberg.
Right. Now, when you see headlines like this, like West performing currency, spread very quickly on social media, it often shapes public perception. Do you think that such headlines sometimes exaggerate the situation, or as it were, affect confidence in the economy in some way?
Yes, it will affect because they boost speculation. It boosts those statements will actually boost speculation. And when speculation sets in economics, speculation is one of the dangerous things in economics. Depending on how you manage it, it can be positive or negative. In this case, it's going to be negative. Once you issue that statement that is the worst performing currency, foreign investors may even be triggered, and they will be very careful because if the money that he's bringing is not going to have that value, it's going to be a problem, and all of that. So we need to be very careful with the statement. I think that is a bit exaggeration. That is the worst performing. This morning, yesterday night, I tried to even compare our CD with the other African currencies. We are not too bad. Okay. We are not too bad. Just that my fear is that if this trend continues, persists, even inflation will set backward. In other words, instead of the downward trend we have been enjoying, now the headline inflation is around 11.5%. It may go back because when importations, when the dollar and other foreign currencies actually perform better than our CD, what it happens, the cost of importation becomes very high. And when it becomes high, the importers are also not for the Christmas, so they'll pass on that, and that will actually, cause a surge in prices of goods and services. As I speak to you now, already, Ghanaians, when the currency was performing, they were claiming that they had old stock, so they have to sell that one first. But now that you go to the Medina market, you will see the real show of the businessmen over there. They have already increased prices. You understand? So it all borders on the fact that we are not having better regulation. But I think it's an exaggeration, full of exaggeration by saying that it's the worst performing currency, what have you. You see, sometimes these Bloomberg and those stuff, everything that's political economy. You understand? First of all, they are American and the Western kind of research or whatever firms. You understand? And yes, sometimes they will praise you and what have you, but don't also be solely headed when they are praising you. Sometimes the little glitch, they will actually blow it out of proportion. You understand? So I understand some of the statement, but the point is that any fair-minded economist or financial analyst will try to look at other currencies in Africa and their performance, and even across the world and their performance. Yes, the CD is depreciating, but after all, it has just been 13%, right? We have other African countries where I think by the end of the third quarter or so, they have depreciated more than 40%. They are also there, so you can't say it's the worst performance currency in the world.
All right. Okay, exactly. We have just about 15 minutes or 12 minutes to the top of the hour. This is Business Breakfast on Zed. If you just tuned in, this morning we're having a conversation with Dr. Larry Silfi, Felix Larry Silfi, and he is a development economist, and he's helping us understand exactly the headline that Ghana, the CD really is the worst performing currency in the world. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a message, please send me a WhatsApp on 0544321019, 0544321019, and I'd read your messages for you. You can as well call me on 03039566641, 03039566641. We're streaming live on Facebook at ZFMGH and on YouTube at Z Multimedia. You can drop a comment there and I'll read them for you. All right, Doc, let's move beyond the headlines a bit and look at the fundamentals. And I know you're talking extensively about the import and all of that, and even the fact that Christmas is coming in, so people are importing. They're taking advantage of where the dollar is now to be able to, where the CD is against the dollar, to be able to import. Doesn't this have to do with any global trend at all?
Already, if you look at the global market, oil has increased a little bit. But I will not say it has zero effect on what we are seeing now.
Okay.
It contributes, but marginally or majority-wise, you could see that the problem has been more of domestic trend than global trend.
Right.
So that is why I'm saying that if, for example, in fact, even the oil, are we not drilling oil in this country? What has happened to our toll? You see, that is the problem we have as a country. So it borders more on domestic. Even the global with the oil and all other stuff, we can have control over it. There are some global factors that you cannot have control over. But something like oil prices, you can have control because you have toll. You are drilling oil. What has happened to toll? If you put it in good shape, a greater majority of the oil you consume within your economy can be refined here. You understand? And then you don't have to drill the oil, send it out there for it to be refined, and then they sell it back to you. And you have to spend money to go and import them. So all these things are, domestic factors. But you see, apart from the domestic factors, so apart from what I've actually outlined as domestic factors, there are fundamental issues that we also have to look at.
Right.
The dollarization of the economy. Of course, recently the Bank of Ghana has seen the trick. They knew, but I think they were finding it difficult to move. But finally, they have moved. But even in their moving, I have not seen action being backed by the directive that they issued.
Doc, it's good you brought this up. One of the questions on my mind since they brought that particular notice or directive is how they are going to do that. And so if you're saying you are not seeing any any action really. What kinds of actions are we expecting from them?
So schools that are charging dollars, it is simple. You can actually regulate and make sure that there's monitoring to ensure that they are charging CD. Hotels that are charging in dollars, you can monitor.
You think they should set up like a task force or something?
Of course.
To do that?
I've been talking about regulation. Look at what Sam George is doing. Is Ghana a free market economy? Does it qualify? It tells you it's a mixed market economy. Government has a say. So if you look at the Honorable Communication Minister, Honorable Sam George, and the multi-choice, the fracas between them, you understand?
Yeah.
You see that Ghanaians are in support of what the Ministry of Communication is doing, the minister is doing, because
I've seen a few people, disagree with him anyway.
Well, that is there, but on large, of course, you cannot have all the citizenry, supported. But at least you can see that with my interaction, a greater majority are in support of that, because you see, our economy is even far better than the Nigerian economy. The Nigerians come here, and then they even see here as Western world, because look at our currency and our economic indicators. You understand? Yet they are paying cheaper than us. So you see that the minister's call is the right call, but that is regulation. The same way the Bank of Ghana, has played role. In fact, under the leadership of this way, I must confess that he is doing very well. But there is a lot to be done when it comes to regulation. The system can easily be regulated. Don't sell properties in dollars. But you see the funny thing, after they issued the whole directive, even government institutions and agencies are quoting contracts in dollars. They are quoting contract in dollars.
And this is not the first time they are bringing such a directive.
Yes. So you see, the whole thing, it is one thing making a declaration of the agenda, of the policy agenda, and then another thing implementing it, and then putting monitoring systems in place to ensure that the monitoring is going the way it ought to go.
Right.
So you can, and this directive, it is not the first time.
Yeah.
I think even in the, was it in Mills or Mahama's first term, there was a directive like that. You understand?
Look, I think even this year, this is the second time they're.
Yes. So you see, I think I see institutions to be impotent. You understand? Ghanaians, we are good at putting things on paper. Beautiful. As for that one, if we go for world contest, we'll be the best. But when it comes to implementation, we'll be the last. You understand? The issue of, he's my sister, let me allow, you do this, or don't do that way of the leniency is the problem that we are facing in this country. You have put a beautiful system in place. Look, rent here, rent in East Legon, or go to Airport Hills and Airport Residential area. Renting an office, they are quoting in dollars, and it is so absurd. I'm in Ghana, and you want me to carry a cedis, the local currency that you are supposed to take. You want me to go and change it in dollars and come and pay you. Some of them will smartly say that I'm quoting in dollars, but you can bring the CD equivalent. It's not the same thing. Because you see, indirectly, you are taking the dollar, because when you quote in dollar, I have to look at the CD dollar relationship and get the equivalent and come and pay you.
Right.
Which is not fair. So the point is that call, the dollarization ought to be rigorously pursued. The de-dollarization ought to be rigorously pursued in the economy to ensure that schools are charging the local currency. I have had the opportunity to be in South Africa. Look, my first time of stepping in South Africa, I was having $500 in my pocket. By the time I was able to change the money into their local currency, the remaining, after deducting all the taxes and everything at the airport, the remaining, dollar equivalent of their currency in my pocket was less than $200. I'm telling you, I have been to India, the same thing. Difficult to change your, and you cannot easily spend your raw dollar in any shop.
Right.
You understand? So these economies, if you see their currencies performing very well, it's not a rocket science. So there are deliberate policies and programs in place which are, judiciously being implemented with strict monitoring systems in place to ensure that, those who flout the law are rigorously and severely dealt with. But we sit here, we put the agenda, or we make pronouncement and announcement out there. Don't do that, and we sit back. And you think people are zombies? They are just going to people who are profiting from the already corrupt system. You think they will just change overnight? We are not saints. And Ghanaians are one of the stubborn, citizens that you can ever find on the continent of Africa. We are calm and slow in doing our things. We are not robust and aggressive as our Nigerian brothers and sisters. But I can say we are even more dangerous than the Nigerians. At least the Nigerians, you will see that if they get you, they will not spare you in terms of, cutting corners and get the deal for themselves. But Ghanaians will be very subtle and slow before you say Jack, they are off. So the point is that it's a good call to de-dollarize the economy, but it shouldn't be just mere way. Bank of Ghana ought to put a task force in place to ensure that they monitor regularly. And these days, there are even AIs that you can track. You understand? There are a lot of private schools, basic schools, not even universities, are charging in dollars, claiming that they are international school. International school is defined by the curriculum you are running, not the currency you are charging your fees in. So we need to be very smart as people. Number two, the aboki. The aboki, when we saw the gains in the city, I made a call on one of the media channels that, look, we need to take a critical look at that place, because all the people who were holding dollar at that time, if they want to change, they will run to aboki. And even some of the banks are dealing with the aboki people because the difference gives them a lot of mileage in terms of profit.
True.
You understand? So we need to actually sanitize the system. I keep talking about regulation. Any country or economy with weak regulation system will never see the light of day in terms of economic progress, because at the end of the day, only the bourgeoisie up there, rent-seeking behavior, get the booty, and the majority of the people who are in the middle to lower income bracket are the people who suffer. And when you have such group who are majority or who form the major part of your population are suffering, as a government, you are not doing well. Because welfare, we are all pursuing welfare in the sense that we cannot make everybody better off. But the point of the matter is that a major part or portion of your population ought to be better off as compared to the least group, so that the major who are better off can use the resources, to support the rest. Otherwise, we are not going anywhere.
Right. Okay, Doc. It's because you've been talking about the Bank of Ghana. Let's stay on the Bank of Ghana for a few minutes. Now, one of the things that we've seen in the past few months, at the beginning of the year, and you even started your conversation with that the Bank of Ghana has intervened a few times in the market, really, to help stabilize the cedi. Do you think that their interventions, or how effective have their interventions been so far from where you sit?
The interventions were doing well during the early part of the year. But you see, too much of that is also creates artificial kind of thing. So if you recall, the IMF came to warn the government to look at what is called the price signaling effect.
Right.
When you do not allow the forces of demand and supply to play naturally, organically, and all you do is to dumping money or dollar forex into the system just to ensure that there is stability or a gain. At some point in time, you can no longer do that again. And that is where we are now. You understand? So the whole thing was that the organic way of intervening was to ensure that we are more driven. We are driving ourselves towards export instead of import. And then ensuring that some of these not just made the de-dollarization and all of that are well taken care of. Then naturally you see that the system will begin to play fair. But what the Bank of Ghana was doing, and it was good at that time, because when they came, the dollar was averagely 17 point something, to a cedi, and all of that, or vice versa, cedis. So to a dollar, the cedi was 17 point something, and so we needed that more than anything. And don't also forget that the government has also started servicing our foreign debt. You understand? So, and these foreign debts are calculated in foreign currencies. And so the government itself would demand dollar in order to settle this debt. And that is also contributing to that. So we need to be very, And the one thing that people, and that is a very unpopular reason, but they are real. And my economics that I did, I don't do book economics. I try to relate economic theories to practicalities. Is the churches. Most of them have foreign accounts operating offshore. Especially those that have their headquarters that are naturally not Ghanaian, churches. Especially the Orthodox churches and the Pentecostal churches who have their headquarters. They send money to their head offices. You understand? And even those that are Ghanaian born churches operate foreign accounts. So put $2 million on Friday into the system. By the time it is Monday, it is gone. So it's like pouring water into a basket. So that is why we need to regulate the system and all of that. So I think we can't say outrightly that the interventions by the Bank of Ghana at that time has not been effective. It has. But the point of the matter is that that particular approach was not sustainable. That's why we were calling for more sustainable approach to sustain the gains that we were actually chalking at that time.
Now, some critics actually say that the central bank should be more aggressive. But others also say that their hands are tied by limited reserves.
No, I don't think, because as at now, even the gold board within the few months that they wanted to reserve gold have been able to reserve about 3.7 billion United States dollars worth of gold is there. And then our our national reserve, is around 10.5 to 11 billion United States dollars worth of, a reserve, which is equivalent to about 4 to 5 or 6 month import cover. So the reserves are there. But you see, the Bank of Ghana, economic is a science. Finance, monetary policy is also itself a science. There is a branch of economics.
Right.
You see, you need to be scientific in your approach. The Bank of Ghana is smart. They know that pumping, continuously dumping, raw dollar or pounds or whatever into the system is not the sustainable way. Because one, it will end up depleting your reserve.
Yeah.
You understand? Number two, what it will to also create artificial demand and supply system, which is not sustainable not even in the medium term, not to talk of the long term. And so now they are trying to shift from that intervention approach to a more sustainable approach. So these things will be temporary. But my point is that I hope that whatever they are putting in place will not only be either short-term or a medium-term, but it will be a long-term kind of sustainable agenda to ensure that we'll bring the city back, to its, form as we enjoyed in the early part of the year, and continuously like that. So we can't say that they have not really been effective in their interventions.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. But beyond the central bank, beyond Bank of Ghana, I know that government fiscal discipline is also very, very important. Yes. What role does government spending and borrowing play in the strength or the weakness of the city?
Very good question, my brother. That's why I like your conversation. You see, another role the fiscal side has been playing is that now they have started some expenditure. Not to say that they were not expending as people were claiming. They were spending, but the spending was actually highly curtailed. Now, what is happening now is that you could see that during the media budget review, the finance minister outlined a lot of expenditure that they have incurred in terms of paying debt. The national health insurance debt is paid. The national national food buffer stock company has been settled, and other agencies, most of the SOE state-owned enterprises were in red. Now the government has been able to provide subventions to them to ensure that they have started, they have been on their knees, and some of them have started taking on with strict KPIs. You remember the government, the president invited all the CEOs into the high office and then cautioned them that at some point in time they see that you are not performing, you'll be kicked out. Yeah. So all these things, I was there. Exactly. All these things are spendings that the government is. But you see, other spending that the government is doing, I feel like they are consumption based instead of productive based. Is one, the national sanitary pad kind of thing. Yeah. I'm not saying it's bad, but if I were the president and the government, instead of outrightly doling out 600 million Ghana cedis to bring these things, I'll use it to set up a plant. Or have a PPP.
There were so many calls for that, actually.
I'll have a PPP arrangement. There are people who are even using natural, herbs and banana stock and all of that to do that. Have an MOU with them. Let them produce. A portion is used for such a social protection agenda. The rest is used, sold. Government get your tax. Or if you government, you are the one even setting up the plant, you get your revenue as well as your tax. That is very, very key. But we are importing that. That is consumption, because when those sanitary pads go, they don't bring any sort of revenue. That is number one. Stress-free first year fees. It's also consumption. You can see that. So this one also, somebody will argue that it's an investment in the human resource sector. But this one, I beg to differ. I beg to differ because you see, human resource kind of thing is not done this way. You are paying fees. You understand? Hoping that in the nearby future they will. You need to have be deliberate with even the kind of programs. If it is human capacity that you want to build, look at the sector that you need human capacity. We need a lot of human capacity when it comes to TVET.
Yeah.
You understand?
Being
The technical
tech and
vocation.
all of that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You understand? So if you keep on paying fees for abstract programs,
I don't want to mention some.
not to denigrate other
Absolutely,
courses, but
very important.
we are looking at the structure of our economy and what we need as a state. If you just do wholesale fee paying and whatever, it's consumption. I beg to differ. Free SHS, you could see that the government came to meet it. There were fears that they were going to cancel. They promised that they were going to make it better. They have gone by the promise. That is also, yes, human capital in the future, but at the moment it is consumption.
Yeah.
Because government has doled out more than 450 million Ghana cedis in that sector. You could see that now headmasters and headmistresses are not complaining. Food, students are not complaining. They are eating quality food and all of this is consumption. At this stage, I think government could have looked at a better way of channel those resources into the productive sector rather than the consumption. So fiscal side, the government has started paying debt. Remember contractors.
Yeah.
You understand? The debt that was left by the ex-Wall administration, more than about 3 billion or so. The government has started paying that. And then domestic debt, foreign debt, as I said earlier on, all are being catered for. These things will also exert pressure on the local currency. Take it or leave it. It's a fact.
It's quite some way, because the same issues that we were complaining about, that to the ditch we were in by the end of last year or towards the end of last year, are the same kind of things that we are talking about now. Spending so much, borrowing to finance certain social interventions that are only consumption based and doesn't bring us anything in the short term.
Yes.
And those are the same things that the government is doing currently.
And I think I blame the Ghanaians. Ghanaians are naturally born
we
to
like the free
to
things,
enjoy booties, freebies and all of that. So the politicians have seen that if I don't promise that, they will not vote for me. But you see, I keep saying that if you are a government, your agenda is to do things that will boost job creation, increase production, and people will make money to pay for these things. After how much is part? It is people like the young girls are suffering because their parents are not well to do. There's no job.
True.
Incomes are low. And so if you have 3 girls, it's not easy to manage them. And so the government says, I will give you the free sanitary pad. Instead of the government using that one to maybe create a tomato processing factory or maybe gold processing factory or something like that, which will create jobs, add value to our our primary export commodities. Before we export them, we get more, boost the economy. People get more income, they pay their taxes. Government, you get yours to do all the social amenities that you want to do. And then people, when they have their income, you cannot tell me that they cannot pay their fees. I prefer getting a job, earning good income, and paying my children's school fees than a government saying that they are going to give me free education where even there are no textbooks, where even there are no school infrastructure, where even there are no good food, where even there are no enough teachers to actually, student-teacher contact rate has reduced and all of that. So I think we need to reorient ourselves as a country. Countries that are doing freebies and all that. I'm not saying social protection is not there. Social protections are there, but we need to be rational and strategic about it. It's not a wholesale thing that I will do this, I will do that. Look, free SHS is a good thing. I cannot defeat that. But the point of the matter is, I think then and even now we are not ready for it.
For that,
the structure of the economy is not good for that. Look, at the basic level, the ex-Wall administration was not even able to print one textbook. I beg your pardon, one textbook to the schools. We are buying. The private sector has actually invaded that particular sector, and what they are doing is that they print and they charge parents exorbitant prices. School has reopened. Parents are bleeding. Parents are crying at the basic level. Yet we have F-cube. Look at our public basic schools. Now everybody is taking their children to private schools because the public basic schools are virtually like a piggery. You understand? Your child goes there, and I've been in classes. I had a maid servant with me that I wanted to educate. I took them at that time. I was staying at OEB. I took the girl. I went to meet 84 to 90 students. Some of them 3-4 sitting on a small desk. Others have to in Accra. Not to talk of villages. Immediately, I had to find a way and sacrifice and take the girl to a private school, more affordable one. So we need to look at these things and stop enjoying freebies that are not sustainable. It will get back hunters, if not us, maybe the next generation yet to be born.
Look, these are very real issues. Unfortunately, our time is up, and we have to go. I know that this CD matter we're talking about this morning has an effect on businesses, especially importers. What would be some realistic things that they have to do in these times as the CD is falling and all of that?
Yes, I think the importers, if there are things you think you can get in Ghana here, first of all, look at it.
Okay.
In Ghana here. Especially those few processing companies that we have, those few manufacturing companies that we have in the economy. If there are some raw materials that are easily accessible in the country, maybe you have to rather send your specifications to those who produce the raw materials, and then you look at them over here. Others too, there's nothing much you can do about it. It will actually have to be a national policy for businesses to be able to thrive very well. And so I would say rather that the government now, looking at the trend, should rather do what is right: production, productive sector strategic investment, boost local production, and boost local value addition, ensure that the value chain, of this economy is well strengthened. Then we can export something good and innovative into the world market, compete effectively, and rake in more forex. The gold that we are even exporting today, it is a non-renewable natural resource. One day we'll not get it again. And so we need to look at better ways of, doing things that will protect local businesses, expand the economy, grow it. Businesses must thrive, more jobs are created, and then we all get better. In terms of importation, businesses now have to play a smart role. After all, during the gains, I'm sure they put certain things in place to serve as a shock absorber. So maybe in the interim, they can fall on that and ensure that they sustain whatever they are doing. But the bottom line is that now, if they are planning, they should be very careful, because the way the dollar has, started, performing against our local currency, if you don't take care of your planning process very well and you do things the usual way, I'm sure it's not going to help. But I don't think it is any cause for alarm. It's not too much of a, because we're at 10 point something, we just moved to. So just imagine a 13% increase. Our call to government is that this trend shouldn't continue. It shouldn't continue. If it continues,
so what would be one a single most important action the government must take today to stabilize or strengthen and strengthen the city?
Yes, all the things that I've professed are actually long-term kind of thing. Others too immediately can be done. But in terms of the government, I don't know what they can do in a single most in 10 years. Nothing that there are, but essentially at the instant I don't have anything.
Essentially, the policies they put in place must work.
Yes, and I think what I can say now is that at the initial stage, the Bank of Ghana and the Finance Ministry, so in this case, the fiscal and the monetary, they were collaborating. That the collaboration ought to be deepened. And you made mention of people calling for the aggressive nature of the Bank of Ghana. I agree. Not only the Bank of Ghana, even the fiscal policy managers also have to put in aggressive measures. They shouldn't lose hold of the revenue, of the expenditure-based revenue mobilization agenda that they started pursuing. They should also improve public financial management, as they have been doing. All these things will inure directly or indirectly to the benefit of the gains, in terms of the gains that the city will make against the other foreign currencies. But as far as Bank of Ghana is concerned, I think government interim or immediate step that it can take is mainly through the Bank of Ghana in terms of aggression, like the dollarization and all of that. And they should also actually work with the bank effectively to ensure that even importers, they will not be allowed to cash raw dollars. For some of them, they may need X amount of dollar, but because they want to hold dollars because of the gains that the dollar has started making, they will apply for XY amount, keep the difference, and use the actual amount to import, so that they keep the rest. When we do that, more dollars will then again go into the hands of the citizenry, and it will become like a gold trade in the system, as we were seeing in the previous administration. And so the aggressive nature of the Bank of Ghana to de-dollarize the economy is very, very important. They have issued a statement that people shouldn't do that, but that one is not the only thing that they should do. They should implement and show policy. Monitoring is also actually in place, and then the Abuchi and monitor churches and what have you. In fact, the dollar withdrawal ought to be seriously curtailed. Very, very important. If you're an importer, just send the particulars of your supplier over there to the bank. Let them do the transfer direct. The interbank rate is far, okay, as compared to the, the illegal forex market, which also contribute to this thing. So I think in the interim, that's what the government of Ghana can do to stabilize the situation, whilst they pursue the medium to long-term agenda in terms of production expenditure, looking at tourism, and then ensuring that all consumption expenditures are reduced and rather monies are channeled into the production sector. I think that is what ought to be done.
Doc, it's a good time to wrap up now, but maybe I'll just pick your thoughts on this one finally, and then we can go. Do you think that the government is overwhelmed with the problems, and they don't quite seem where to start from? Seem to know where to start from?
In terms of what?
The solutions, all the things you mentioned, tourism. There's opportunity there. There's in agriculture, almost every aspect.
I don't think they are overwhelmed. You see, NDC is the party that has been in government for a longer period than any other party.
True.
Remember, under Rawlings, it was almost 19 years. Mills Mahama came for 8 years.
Yeah.
Mahama has come for 4 years. NPP was Kufuor, Nanado 16 years. Add that of NDC, you see that. So when it comes to experiencing governance, I would say NDC has it more than the
well,
NPP.
I'm not even looking at just one government against the other.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it holistically.
Yeah.
That all the time, these problems, these solutions that you are professing are solutions that have been professed and professed. So why aren't we really seeing anything? And I'm thinking that is it because when they get there, the things become to some way, and it's not about NDC and PP.
Yeah, I get you. So when they get there, one, incompetence is one of the factors. And I can tell you, I don't want to mention minister's name, whatever, because this station is apolitical.
Apolitical.
So I'm careful about that. But incompetency, and you are very smart. You even as I'm saying, you can picture some of the sectors, full of incompetence. Number two, it's like even the manifestos that government come with, they really don't understand it. And number two, they don't mean it. So that is also another thing. And number three, they prioritize political kind of benefit over national over public good or national benefit. That is the problem we face. Now, as they are in government, and this is cut across, like you said, not one party against, but all of them, as they are in government, the very first day that they are sworn in, they are thinking of the next election. So everything they do is how can it benefit us in the next election. So at the end of the day, the key national agenda is relegated to the background, and then they pursue political, kind of beneficial agenda and whatever in terms of their programs and whatever. It's not that they're overwhelmed. Look, the problem that we face at this country, and we face in this country, they are simple things that if you put somebody who is not well educated over there, the person, look, Ghana's economy and that of Burkina Faso was not too much different, though we were a bit advanced than them. Look at Traore. That guy doesn't have a university degree. I stand to be corrected. But look at the magic he's doing. We need that kind of thing. The commitment and the political will is not there.
It's not there.
There is no sense of patriotism on their part. It's not that they're overwhelmed. Incompetency, lack of patriotism, political benefit over national benefit is what is killing us as a nation.
And we won't be able to change the country with this particular attitude. Doctor, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me, my brother. And I enjoy having conversations.
I always enjoy our conversations myself. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, then that brings us to the end of today's Business Breakfast on Zed. We've been discussing the headline, city named worst performing currency in the world. What exactly is going on? And from our conversation, it's clear that while the cedi did record the steepest fall in the third quarter, the broader picture is more complex. Now, the underlying causes from high import demand and limited forex supply to some fiscal pressures and a little, Doc says some small global trends as well. All of that play a role. And as we've heard, the way forward is lies not in the short-term interventions alone, but also in the long-term reforms that build resilience and also restore the confidence in our currency. A big thank you to my guest, Dr. Phyllis Larry. He is the Executive Director of IDER, and he is a development economist. Thank you so much for helping us unpack these issues, and to you, our listeners, for joining the conversation right from 6:15 till now. Really grateful. And before I go, let me do this birthday wish that has come in. Happy birthday going out to Chris Moses Kodo of the TG Holdings and the Independence Ghana. God bless you. God bless you, sir, for taking me under your wings and mentoring me. Thank you for giving me my first opportunity as a digital marketer. God bless you, sir. This is from Christopher to you, to you, Chris Moses Kodo of the TG Holdings and the Independence Ghana. Says that happy birthday to you. All right, so we're back again tomorrow for more interesting conversations. My name is Nicho Ebi Hammond, and this has been the Business Breakfast on Zed. Please stay with us for more business insights. And until next time, which is tomorrow, please keep asking the right questions. And when you think Ghana, think Zed. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.